Good evening, all. Good night to our viewers. Good night to our panelists, and good night to voters all across Guyana. I'm sure that our brothers and sisters in the diaspora are eagerly awaiting news as to what's going on. Please be aware that we have GlobeSpan would have been trying to give you some live feeds during the day. Please be aware that you should be, and I hate to put it this way, but let's be mature about where we are viewing our news from, because like in the US, unfortunately, we have matured to the stage where we have a lot of fake news here too. Everybody is
Fake
photoshopping
news.
something or the other. So let us be careful with what we are sharing and stuff like that. The day so far in Guyana, to inform our panelists and inform all of you out there, the day has been pretty calm. I myself, I've been around to a few of the polling stations, spoken to people all across the country. We will be talking about some of the potential trouble areas that we have had today later on in the show. But it has been pretty calm. GCOM has, by and large, efficiently managed the process. When I went to vote at around 12 midday today, in and out, I was probably there probably 5 to 7 minutes, and I was out of the polling station. Uh, Process was pretty smooth. The people at the polling stations, they were all dressed in moderate non-party colors. I must say all the GCOM and the observers too were all in non-party colors at the stations I went to. Um, a few of the opposition persons, well, non-government persons voted at the same polling station, and they too dressed very appropriately. But by and large, people are excited about the day. So we have a lot of discussions here tonight about what's happening across the country. International observers are all across the length and breadth of Guyana. International observers are there. I've had interviews with a number of them as well. So things have happened, and except for maybe two incidents, have happened very, very peacefully across the country. So we are grateful for that kind of news coming in. Tonight, as I said, we're going to get feedback from any number of persons involved in the process here in Guyana as we continue our discussion. Gentlemen, we have tonight Dr. Ramharak, who is here with us tonight, joining, lending us his scientific expertise in analyzing what's happening. We also have Mr. Brian Collison. We have Mr. Cleveland, Leland. We have also, Mr. Charles Sugrim, Professor Charles Sugrim, who has joined us. We expect Brother Rose. A whole host of persons will be joining
Dr.
us.
Rose is here.
Dr. Rose is here.
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't realize you joined us already. But we are thankful that you were able to join us tonight. I must say at this stage, I'm the one person on the ground here, and we have a lot of expertise tonight with us. So we will be giving feedback. I will be getting calls from Essequibo during our show, from East Coast, from Berbice. We are going to get calls from the field to update us what is happening and how it's happening. Gentlemen, welcome to tonight's program.
Okay,
Good evening.
thank you.
How is it in the diaspora? What's the feedback? What's the feeling like?
Wow. Charles, you want to go ahead since you have the mic?
I have been talking to quite a bit of people, and I think everyone is also looking forward for a peaceful election. They know what has happened in past elections, that there's a peace before the storm. I hope that is not the case. But I think everyone is looking forward, and so far, the polls have been closed for what, 1 hour now?
Yes.
So I think what we've heard, what you're saying is that everything in Guyana seems to be peaceful, and we just look forward for that to continue throughout the night until GCOM will announce the election results.
Correct. And let us also remember that the accumulation, the tabulation of the results will be done at the place of polls, where the polling officers and the deputy polling officers are going to get the signatures of people there. And they're going to post the results at the polling stations, and then that results, the originals, will be transported to GCOM, which entity will be using them to give us a nationwide tabulation.
Um, yeah, and I do share the same view as as Charles, and I'm sure the other gentleman in Queens. Obviously, our hope and my hope is that this is going to be we'll see a peaceful end to this process. It's a different election. Obviously, it's very tense, and we've seen, as I was saying before, we've seen the use of fake news and social media being used to a great extent that we've never seen before. So one of my concerns, though, is, and I do concur with Charles, is that we need to have the results. I know they are interior regions, and it will be difficult to get everything in a timely fashion. But the parties will know at some point later tonight, based on their information and the people on the ground where they stand. But I think it's important, very important, that GCOM try to get this information out to the public, because the longer you wait, people can manufacture stories, and it may create the more stressful or tense situations. So I think the faster GCOM can get the results together and make a declaration, and I think that would be better for all Guyanese.
Indeed, that is so, yes. And we also are awaiting feedback from, as I said, from various parts of the country, and we're going to get that soon. Mr. Colliston and the rest of our teams, what has been your feedback like so far?
Well, like everyone else, everybody is expecting a very competitive but peaceful election, right? That is the general consensus. It's very competitive because the stakes are high, oil and the oil revenues, so it's much more competitive than some of the prior elections. But at the same time, everybody expects a peaceful election. And concerning the tabulation of the results, ideally it shouldn't take too long, and the parties should have an idea about the performances, because all they have to do is tabulate the 2,000 plus polling places, and you would have an idea of, the performance, right? So it shouldn't really take too long, but we never know.
Yes, you see the official results. One has to. This is not an excuse, but the realistic situation is that the original statements that has to be transmitted or transported from the interior areas. The GCOM cannot depend, or they will not depend on a copy or a electronically generated scan or a photo. They will need the original statement signed. So that was one of the reasons for the delay the last time around. Let's see what would happen this time.
But I think the party officials who are in those stations, they can take picture, and they can take the results, and they can send that into their party headquarters. So parties will definitely have some indication as to where things are going. This is why I'm saying I think the faster GCOM can put this together, get it out, I think it's probably the safest way to go to avoid any kind of mongering or things like that. You don't want to stretch this out too far. I understand regions 8, 9, 1, if it's on the outskirts, and it will take some time to get those ballots into place. But
in addition to that, some of the outlying areas, they're, in terms of the total, the relative sizes are very, very small. So the main issues should be the highly populated areas, 4, 6, 3, and those places. Some of the smaller ones, even though the results may take a long time to get in, I don't think they will impact the elections as much as the larger ones.
Well, sorry, Brian, it may. You see, in closely run elections, even the smaller areas are extremely crucial to the process.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, and one, it is anticipated that this election may be another close one.
But I believe there was a difference of one vote in one of the regions. Remember that from the last election? So even though it's in the interior, that can make a difference. And when we're dealing with a very close election like this, one seat can make a hell of a difference.
Absolutely. And also remember the way that the tabulation or the way that the seats are being allocated. It's extremely important because, to what Dr. Ramarak said just now, I mean, if one of the party, I think by one vote was the difference the last time. So it is, if it is that close again, we are going to be in for some challenging analysis. I know Dr. Rose has been good at his analysis of the numbers and stuff like that, but it is something that we need to be extremely careful. But you are right. Look, you are perfectly in order. By midnight, in another hour maybe, the parties will know.
They will.
They will know. And the last time I mean, all time, you know who win and who lose based on what they start to do by midnight. So no two ways about it. They will know.
You have cell phones and text messages, so they will know.
Yeah, and remember,
early.
Not officially.
Yeah.
They will not know officially, but they will know.
remember, correct.
Officially,
Remember
but
what
they will.
happens. Yeah, remember what happens. Let's take the two larger parties, for example. The APNU AFC slate and the PPPC slate, they will have observers at practically every polling place. And so their observers are going to send back to them a copy of that statement of poll.
Yep.
So they will definitely know.
The only thing is, like, you mentioned, everybody has mentioned the interior locations. So it's how reliable is the transmittal of information from those areas? The reliability might be an issue. Of course, you get phones.
It's not going to be official because it's
Right.
not the
I'm saying
actual.
preliminary.
Preliminary, yeah.
So phones hopefully will work well. Text
But-
messages, whatever, to send those preliminary results. But it shouldn't take forever.
Can I ask a
All
question too? Because I read in the papers recently, I think the PP was objecting to the use of someone's aircraft because that person was a supporter of the government. Was that issue resolved, or can you shed any light on that? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, yes, I'm aware of it. The PPPC has objected to BK Tiwari's company being utilized to transport the ballot boxes, the ballots. Yeah, so that is quite different from the statement of polls.
Okay.
But I think the chairman recently in Kaichur News, she addressed that issue, and she said that is not a problem. But I think what Brian is getting at, if I don't mind, before Dr. Rose come in, I think Brian is looking at a different thing. When he said regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those regions are on the coastland, and it's likely those results will come in early.
Yeah.
Now that will give us the idea of who win the presidency. And that's Guyana's predicament, is that, yes, those regions will tell us who win the presidency. Now, parliamentary seats, we'll have to wait until the other regions come in.
Official.
So by tonight, we should know who win the presidency, basically. Because those, and Dr. Rose has been doing quite a bit of analysis of that, and maybe he can help us here.
Correct. Dr. Rose?
Yeah, thank you very much. My first time here, so I want to say a special good evening to all of G Globespan listeners in North America, Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and especially Guyana. Now, when one talks about the election, I put together two bellwether regions. That's Region 4 and Region 6, or Region 4 and Region 3. Now, in the last election, APNU defeated the PEP in Region 4 by at least 43,000 votes. But if in this election, APNU gets about 35,000 votes in Region 4 over the PEP, and Region 6 could give APNU at least 30,000 votes give the PEP 30,000 votes over APNU, then it is clear that the PEP wins the election. Because Region 3 will take care of the surplus 5,000 votes plus Linden votes, APNU next stronghold. APNU don't have a stronghold in that. Region 7 is just by 1,600 votes they defeated PP the last time. And whereas the PP now will have Region 1, 2, and 5 at least, to give them at least about 20,000 votes.
You're
Okay.
forecasting that something remains static.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying,
Sounds
I'm saying based on the results we
Ceteris
see.
paribus.
I'm not forecasting anything off my mind. I'm saying if the results should come back to show.
Yeah, you said there were two
Yeah,
regions.
those will be.
What happens to the others? They remain static.
No. Those are my two bellwether regions in the sense that look, if APNU defeated PP in Region 4 by 35,000 votes, the last one was 43, but polls are showing that might decrease. I don't know. But if the PP comes back and defeat APNU in Region 3 or Region 6 by at least 30,000 votes, then the other region, either Region 3 or Region 6, whichever one, will take care of the Linden votes, plus the surplus votes APNU has in Region 4, and that should determine the election because the PP still have Region 5 to fall back on, which gave them about 4,000 votes the last time, Region 2, which gave them about 10,000 votes the last time, and Region 1 as well.
I guess with that analysis, you're assuming everything.
No,
remains the
I
same.
am not
It is
assuming. I'm
remain-
saying
Hold on.
based on the results.
Yeah, what
I'm not
saying.
assuming. I said
It
based.
is-
If the it's not an assumption. No. It's not. No. It's not hypothetical.
Too many moving parts. I
No.
mean, there's too many moving
I'm
parts.
saying. Listen to me carefully, guys. I'm saying based on the results.
Yeah.
I'm not assuming anything. No, I said based if the results
You're
come back to
assuming
show
the results
that.
remain the same.
So,
and they will not.
so I'm saying that to show that will show you where the election will be heading.
Right. So you're based on a hypothetical.
Dr. Rose, so how would you factor the LGE, the numbers, how they played out in the more recent elections, even though they were for the local government?
How would I factor in what?
The local government, the way the votes were cast and polled in the last local government elections,
I
which
would
is
even
more
go there.
recent.
I would even add things like population distribution changes. You know, how many people moved from Region 6 to 4, from 4 to 6? There are a lot of noise that you will have to take care of. You know, to make those assumptions. You know, how many people moved from Linden to Georgetown? It's a lot of net numbers moving all over the place. It's very.
I'm going to repeat again. I'm not basing this on assumptions. I'm telling you, if the results come back to show that, it's not that I'm assuming that will happen. If the results come back to show that,
No, and I'm telling you, even if it shows that, some of the other things can change also.
other things like what?
Look, Region 3, the last time was 300,000. Right? What's the number you see? What's the number you see? 200,000 again? This is Region 3, 300,000.
Region 2 was
Region 2,
9,000. Look at the screen.
9,000. I have the
Region 2
numbers
was
there.
9,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Region 3, it was 20,000. Region 4, APNU won by 43,000.
3,000, yeah.
Region 5,
3,000.
3,000. Region 6 by 15,000.
18, 16, yeah. 16.
Region 6
17,000.
by 17,000.
17,000. Region 7 by APNU won by
2,000.
just under 2,000.
Yeah.
Region 8 was a cliffhanger. Region 9 was
All those numbers can change.
2,000. And Region 10, APNU won by
All
14,000.
those numbers can change.
So the thing is, yeah, but look at, that's what earlier I talk about the third party votes, and that's when the seat allocation comes in. Look at Region 8.
Okay.
PP won 1,836 votes. APNU, AFC won 1,837 votes. Look at United Force, 48 votes. Look at URP, 16 votes. If either of the two, if PVP had joined with URP or TUF, anyone, they would have won that seat hands down.
But by the way, Charles, the GCOM did not approve the joiner agreement.
Is that what you come to approve?
No, that was the latest report came out this afternoon. So they can't.
No, because legally they have to make the decision.
No.
They have to
Did-
decide before the election, not after. They
No.
I mean, the Constitution.
The Constitution-
No. The
says-
joiner can do it after, but it has to be approved by GCOM.
No, it don't have to be approved by
You
GCOM.
can't
Well,
do it
that's what
after.
GCOM is saying.
GCOM
Yeah, that's what GCOM is saying, and they
joiner list,
rejected it.
Section 22 of the Representative Act says that any party who want to join their votes together for the purpose of allocation
Right.
inform GCOM
Right.
and signed by
Right.
two officers
Right.
of the party
I agree.
within 25 days of the election.
Right.
GCOM must now publish that in the official
Gazette, right.
within 23 days. Did they do that? You cannot take away the right for the small
I
parties
agree with that.
if GCOM is blundered.
I
and
think
that might be a serious
GCOM
issue.
I think
No, but
G- I think
don't think
GCOM I think GCOM is
I
what
think Freddie was complaining about that particular issue. He's saying that there's a lot of egos because he thought they would have come together and they did not. So they did.
I think GCOM is violating I think GCOM is violating the Constitution then.
Well,
Because
that's the fact.
a joiner, you could do it after an election. You could join after an election.
Let me, can I just say something about the numbers you guys are trying to crunch?
They did it. They did it. They did it before.
I'm not.
The joiner party did it. The three parties did it.
Joiners submit their request
to GCOM. Yeah.
Well, not even request, their agreement
Right.
to GCOM saying that the three parties, ANOG, the New Movement, and the Liberty and Justice Party, they submitted GCOM that they want this to happen. GCOM cannot say we have to approve it. That is unconstitutional. That is illegal.
That is unconstitutional. I agree with
GCOM
that.
was supposed to publish in the official gazette. What I didn't find out was that done. I don't know.
No, it was not done, and GCOM said it came to them
We
late.
have a lot of courts. We have a
What-
Guyana court. We have a criminal
What
court.
GCOM
We'll
is
let them
saying
take it to the
is that
courts.
it was too late for them to make a decision, which I think is wrong.
That's what I'm hearing now. But
Yeah.
when I was
Let them
listening
take it to the
what
courts.
the
If-
night
if
when you
it's
were
so-
having that conversation with I remember the last speaker, they did not come up with a solution to that. They were waiting on GCOM, proposing that GCOM should be saying to them, do this. But like I asked you earlier, the onus should have been on them
No,
to
no,
put their
no, no.
So-
I
so
think
gentlemen,
what
gentlemen,
they said.
Hey, you,
Ear doc, ear doc.
Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back to the core. So we are awaiting some feedback. We are actually trying to get one of the persons from the join the list. We're actually trying to see if we can get Mr. Jonas to
Very good.
join us. He will give us a directing. What I do know is that Charles is right. GCOM has no say. The Constitution allows these people to
Yeah.
say we will join. They did it before. They were on this show. They did it
No, they were
before
not.
the elected date.
25 days. Of
And so it was a matter of GCOM to I think as of 2 days ago, Ralph Ramkran would have said that GCOM did not respond to their queries. But whether the joiner list is illegal is a different matter, because you cannot be illegal if you abide with the Constitution.
Right. I agree with that. GCOM, I think, is playing a turnabout game here because they got the request in time. And if they don't approve it, they're violating the Constitution.
Correct. But you see,
have
Dr.
courts.
Rose, my point is
We have
GCOM
courts. I don't
GCOM
know.
doesn't have a role to approve it anymore. The Constitution allows this.
Right.
The three parties elected to do this. GCOM can't disprove it.
Well, they
I
said
agree, Doc, in fact, I agree with you there.
they
And,
say they have to
if-
sign off on it.
I agree with you there, Doc, because if there's an issue, they have 25 days after the election to resolve it. So it shouldn't be an issue if it was done. Right? They will have
Is it
25
in the
days.
law? What 25 days?
My point, Brian, that they should have
Election
done it.
petition. They will have
Oh,
election
election
petition.
petition.
My
They will have
point-
election petition
I-
to resolve it.
I think, however, let's await. We are hoping that Mr. Jonas can join us soon to give us an update on that. But Dr. Ramarak wanted to take us back to the numbers.
well, I'm sure Dr. Rose is a much, greater mathematician than I am. I wasn't good at math in school, so, but we have to be careful with the numbers, because you're dealing with a lot of, different set of numbers where a lot of things are not very clear, and you can't really kind of get a good handle on the numbers. Here's an example of what I'm saying. So maybe your calculation and your configuration, may be correct in that sense, but we have to be careful. We're looking at a population of 750,000, right? And we have a voting population, which is about 660,000. And then on top of that, we have the 200,000 population out of the 662,000 voters who are on the list, and many of those may may have died or migrated. So I'm a little skeptical about numbers. I have to see
Hello?
actual numbers, and we can't compare this to the last election because again, there are some variables here that are different. We have the small parties, for instance, right? And they may capture some of those numbers. You know, the last election was very close. We know that the some of those voters who voted for the AFC would have gone back to the PDP. So you had an election in 2015 where you had 50.3 percentage voted for the coalition and 49.7 voted for the PDP. I'm saying those numbers are going to be different, right? And at the same time, we have the wild card, which Charles and some of the other guests made reference to, which is the notion of the third party. In my view, I don't think the political space is wide enough to accommodate these third parties. I don't. My wish was that they would do well and capture a few seats, so they can have that parliamentary, freedom to bargain and negotiate with the party that controls the executive power. But the way I'm seeing this play out, I think it comes down because the election was so intense. I do not believe, given the fact also that these small parties are relatively new, they were no long staying power. They don't have the resources, right? They depend primarily on social media, right? They don't have the structure, they don't have the money, and many of them are not even competing in all of the regions. So I think all of those have to be factored in. But at the same time, I don't think these small parties, as much as we would like or as much as we would wish, I don't think they will make any serious impact, unfortunately, on the political landscape during this election.
I just want to say
Right.
this. As
So,
of July 31st last year, Guyana's population was 785,000 people, of which 244,000 were students. So that's 661. We know we don't get that amount of people voting in this election. Because if you go back to 2015, you had 575,000 people registered to vote, but only about 423,000 voted. Because there are a lot of underage people registered as well that became now time to vote in this election. Plus, a lot of people traveled, migrated, and died, and so forth. So I think you're looking at about 475,000 votes the most in this election. A
correct.
44,
But
45,000
That's the point.
increase.
The lists are
yeah,
bloated. There's no two ways around it. Doctor's right about it.
let's
The
pause
list is
for a minute.
bloated.
Let's pause for a minute. Let's go. I'm joined by Sesnarayan Singh, who is going to give us his feedback from being out on the field today. Ses, how are you and how is it going?
Oh, I'm very well. I'm on the east coast of Demerara Command Center, where I was out in the east coast of Demerara since 1:30 this morning. It was a long day, but these elections, I'm convinced, will be won on the east coast of Demerara. It is a unique area, and even though when you do the numbers, Dr. Rose will tell you Region 6 and Region 3, those places, and Region 2 will balance out places like Region 10 and 7, and a fair bit of Region 4. But the dynamics is Region East Coast of Demerara on the East Coast. Today was quite an interesting day on the East Coast of Demerara because there was a determined attempt of voter suppression from 2 p.m. This afternoon on the East Coast. And it was unnecessary because, let me be very absolutely clear, a lot of people were allowed to vote from 6 a.m. The people came out, all kinds, all sides, all the supporters came out. For example, I was in Ants Grove at 6 a.m. this morning. Actually, no, 5:20 this morning when we dropped the boxes off, and because we were escorting GCOM, and the community, as everybody would know, Ants Grove is a very strong APNU, well, a PNC stronghold, very close-knitted community. And at that time, when we were dropping boxes off, there was about 100 people blowing horns, shells, drums, beating drums, waking up the people. You got to come out and vote. So it was very interesting that Guyana came out and voted at 6. All the lines on the East Coast at 6 a.m. were like 100 plus strong. So Guyana got a chance to vote, at least from my perspective. what I saw from industry um, to to um, to just after. Well, Anns Grove is the end of the region that I'm working, um, which is very close to just before that is Mahaika. We go to. So the question though is this: um, the people were allowed to vote. GCOM cooperated with them. They were slow. Let's not deny that. My observation is that the GCOM staff they struggled initially. Lots of them, I presume, were first timers, or I don't know, they were struggling. But they got by 9 o'clock, they were moving faster, and it was moving. So by 12 o'clock, over 70% of the eligible voters on the East Coast, based on our tabulation, was already through the gates. Um, so the afternoon was quite easy. Then about 2 o'clock, I don't know if there was some kind of soft calculation. A lot of young boys were going into villages that were perceived to be PPP stronghold, Monrepo, for example. I, you know, and there was some. As I said, I can only speak for East Coast. I have not seen what's happening in the other regions. And they were trying to suppress the people who were in the line. Not many, because by that time, as I said, most of the people have already voted, and they were trying to suppress. Oh, you know, trying to drive fear. Great thing happened. I saw women of all ages, in particular, looked at these guys. I wouldn't want to describe them, and then turned back and looked at the school and just stood in line silently. The police came, and I want to say this, the commander of the East Coast, thoroughbred professional. He sent his best at all these locations to quell it. I mean, of course, it was unnecessary, but I saw, you know what happened? It reminded me of an act that happened in Georgia. You know, there was an act in Georgia, the United States, where there was a governor's race, and there was some determined effort to suppress Afro-Americans. And I saw this was being determined to suppress pro-PPP supporters, people in pro-PPP areas like Monrepo, Good Hope. You know, so this is the challenge. But you know what? All ended well. What I mostly am disappointed in, and I'm going to conclude here, was that all 100% of the people who wanted to vote could not. There was a small element of people who just give up. And it shouldn't have been. But it was very small. But it should not have happened, because we are 50 years old. We're mature enough to allow our people to speak. Wherever they speak, let them speak.
So if I may ask you, in a succinct way, just summarize why that small percentage of persons did not get to exercise their vote. Were they in the lines at 6 o'clock? Or, you know, you said it, but in a more, summarize it for us, why those persons didn't get to vote.
Well, from my one-to-one observation of what was happening, as an agent of the CPP, I saw some people were fearful for their lives, really, truly fearful. But as I said, the women of Guyana were not fearful. The mature women. I saw a couple of people just dropped out of the line and left. And then afterwards, they expressed the fear that, you know what, I'm a young girl, I don't think I want to deal with it. Okay. That is unfortunate. Unfortunate, because some of them were first-time voters. Unnecessary.
Okay. Since you're on the ground, are you getting a sense that people are much more inclined to vote, or when you travel, do you get a sense that there are some people who are willing to stay home?
I didn't hear that very clearly. Can you say that again?
Okay. Since you're on the ground in Guyana, I'm trying to get a sense as to whether you feel that more people or most people are inclined to come out to vote, or do you have?
Oh, I'm telling you based on our statistics. I'm telling you based on our statistics, at 12 o'clock, 70% of the potential people were out. Done and dusted. People were in the line at 6 a.m. On the average line at 6 a.m. was 100 plus. On the East Coast, I'm talking about the East Coast of Demerara.
So says is voter
but just for context, the East Coast, Demerara Region 4, is the largest region in Guyana with regards to voting population, more than 50% of the population. So it matters.
Yes,
This region will decide who wins this election.
correct.
It gets more
So
than
in your estimation, was there a higher voter turnout than previous election?
I am absolutely convinced
Okay.
Guyana voted.
Okay.
And a lot.
Dr.
I
Amara,
got a question. Is there any guarantee that these persons did not return? Basically, I'm saying they may have
Say,
returned to vote because it seems to me, based on what you're saying,
possibly, but
the society, the area was stable because the police probably were able to return
as
calmly
I,
to the area, and most likely they would have returned. I would assume.
um, I want to say, I don't want to assume because I'm going by what I saw. Fact.
The time.
I am saying factually the police did a professional job. Kudos to the commander and his team, especially the guys from Tactical Service Unit. They did a fantastic job on the east coast of Demerara. Again, I'm paraphrasing it. I don't know about the other regions. I know about east coast of Demerara, which is a big chunk of vote. It's actually going to be about 80,000 people going to be voting. That's what it's looking like right now.
And
It's a huge chunk of vote.
And says, it's your buddy here, Dr. Rose.
Yes, what's going on?
A lot of people don't know this. The east coast of the Demerara has the largest amount of voters, more than Georgetown.
Well,
It's about 80,000
and
people up there to vote alone, the east coast of the Demerara.
And what area considered East Coast from where to where?
From Torkine. Go all
East
the way up
Coast is from industry. No, so from Turkine. Doc is
Turkine.
right. Doc knows his maths better than me.
Go all the way up to Mike, and that's part of Region 4. And those are GCOM stats. It's about 79,000 plus people ready to vote in that region alone. Compared to Georgetown
Yeah,
South,
I'm
52,000, Georgetown North, 41,000. The East Bank, you have 49,000 people registered to vote as well. So those two areas are very large areas of a block of voters. No, 49,000 on the East Bank, and 52 in Georgetown South, 49,000, 41,000 in Georgetown North. No, the East Coast alone is 79. The East Bank is 49. And Georgetown North and Georgetown South is 52,000, North is 41,000.
170,
90 and 130.
200. I mean, the numbers getting too high.
No,
It says,
Sis, I want to say one thing, sis. No, wait,
99
just let me say one
voters.
thing to sis. The attribution part, I think you should be careful with the language that as if it's an official attempt at
Jillian?
voter suppression. I don't know. I wasn't
Hello,
there. I don't
Jillian?
know what happened. But I don't think there was any official
Hello?
attempt at voter suppression. So it's
I'm going to send you the
difficult
link.
to
For
put the attribution to like an authority, and it might have been some kids doing whatever, right? So
I didn't attribute the voter suppression to any political party. What I said, there was organized and deliberate acts of voter suppression. Now, in science, we're taught correlation. Now, 99% of the guys on those trucks that came wore green shirts. Now, that tells, well, green is a color. We could just ignore that. But what I'm saying to you,
should have taken out some photographs, man.
was it necessary? That's my point. Was it necessary? You had the right to vote in Beehive and Hansgrove and wherever.
The easy thing to do
Nobody
now is
objected
just
to your right.
Take people photographs, and that would dissuade them from doing some of this stuff. Take
Comment on
pictures.
that, I want to say first of all.
No, the police.
pictures.
I actually don't need to. I actually don't need to do anything. There's lots of pictures on Facebook, but I don't need to do anything. I'll tell you why. The police did a fantastic job.
But
We
let's
got to recognize that fact.
Sis, comment on this. But gentlemen, let's put something in perspective. Look, Amna Ali and Basil Williams went to Monrepo. I did not hear one call telling people vote and go home. Granger was on television late this afternoon. I did not hear one call saying vote and go home. What I'm saying is that leaders are out there, and whether people are misguided or not, we need to be responsible. Both.
Well, we can reconcile that to the call made by one Volder, who said, "Put on your night clothes and come out to the polling agents." So again, I'm not attributing anything to anyone, but I'm just making a factual statement that was reported and published in all of the newspapers of Guyana. If it's a lie, then Starbuck News is lying. Then Kaicho News is lying. Then, everybody's lying.
But we
So,
what about some of the
also
international
put it in
observers?
perspective. We got
Are
to
there
also
any
put it in
international observers
perspective
there?
that yeah, but what we got to put in perspective is that Granger also said this afternoon that he seems to be convinced, I'm just paraphrasing, he seems to be convinced that the PPP was up to some shenanigans. I'm not quoting him here directly, but he's accusing the PPP of some tomfoolery, and so he's basically in that way condoning maybe the vigilance of his supporters.
I will just want to go to philosophy to answer that. The best form of defense is offense. And I would also want to describe it. It is utter poppycock, because what I saw in the morning throughout this east coast of Demerara from industry, and I was on the road since 1:30. What I saw in this east coast of Demerara, every village came out. There was no village that says, "Oh, well, we can throw back and we can relax." Every single polling station that I visited, there were lines at 6 o'clock. I mean, of course, I was moved, from 6 to 9, lines non-stop. As I said, so there was no need to create any storm. Everybody was being given a chance to say, I want a green, I want a blue, I want a yellow. Take what you want. Nobody cares. But just take your color and go away and relax.
But the feedback so far,
I noticed a couple persons have inboxed me just to relate to viewers what exactly took place. And I'm going to state it as plainly as it happened based on what we have seen. The two persons from the APNU list, Basil Williams and Amna Ali, would have made their appearance at Mon Repose near to the polling station, saying that they received a report that Mr. Anil Nandalal was allegedly sharing out ID cards, and so they went there, and the people who would have turned out with them are people who have the same concerns. Now, Mr. Anil Nandalal immediately called on the international observers who were present there, which is to your point, Brian, that the observers are always present, and he disabused the public of any notion that he was involved in anything. Plus, I think we all need to know that a fake ID card has no value, no use, and it can never be used for anything. In fact, you don't even need an ID card if you can prove yourself to the polling officer. But Mr. Nandalal rightly reminded viewers that you need to go into the polling officer, to the polling station, and they need to identify you based on what's on their record. Your ID card need to reconcile with something. So it's not that you have an ID card and you go and vote. You have to be reconciled with the record. So that notion would have been probably rubbish. There was another altercation at Lusignan where a person in a green shirt came out and started to physically get involved with some people who were questioning what she was doing in the place of polls. We're getting all of these things, but you know what? I would want to beg that it may be a little facetious sounding this way, but I would want to beg that some of these things can be excused because of our history of planting distrust for each other, and that's where the problem is.
I want to provide some real evidence to the panel. I mean, I have seen over 100 cases today of people who turned up with their ID card. They were told, "Sorry, your name is not on this list." Those people then went. They had, I can talk about the PPP. The PPP had tents 200 feet away. They went to the tent and said, "Oh, we didn't get a vote." When they plugged it into the GCOM database, they were found that they had to vote at their original place of where they had a vote. Now, One man I know, for example, immediately jumped into a bus and went to Berbice to vote. He and his family, because they were all, discovered to be eligible to vote in Berbice. People went to La Grange, I know, from all the way up Newton's Hill. One lady went with her family to Mike Coney. So there were cases where people were turned away, but they did not say, okay, I ain't able with all of that, I going home. They just went and do what they had to do.
Sis, I want to make this point though. In every election, in every country,
yeah,
these things happen. The thing is that there's election in Israel today, and it's the same thing being reported. Now, what I'm saying, I am not a supporter of any political party in Guyana, none. But what I'm saying is that it is GCOM's responsibility and the police responsibility to make sure that voting be conducted peacefully and freely and fairly. Now, you will have, you spoke about Atlanta, you talked about Stacey Abrams when she ran for the governorship there. There have always been voter suppression in every state that you can think of by one party or another. So Dr. Mohammed to say Granger went on TV and or Valda or Amna, they went, nobody's going to do that because they're doing that is going against what the party wants. So I'm saying those things will play out itself. It's the vote that counts.
But in addition,
yeah, but you know what? You know what is important here to recognize also. GCOM is doing its job and the police is doing its job, but it is also very incumbent. And again, we come back to the situation where we have an election where things are very tense and we're hearing of all of these events and so on. But the problem also is politicians can't make irresponsible statements like, well, you got to come out and put on your night clothes and come out and watch the ballot box. It is also incumbent, especially upon politicians, to make statements that sends a clear signal to the population that, hey, this is an election, we know things are tense, but we want you to control yourself, and this is a peaceful process. So politicians also, as well as GCOM and the police, do have a very specific and a very important role to play when it comes to these things that's happening right now.
But let me say this quickly. You said GCOM did his job. I'm not sure about that. 2 days before the election, they came out with a code of conduct for parties to sign it how they should behave during an election, when the election was actually over. So I'm saying GCOM has got to get back to its, or have people there to know how to run an election. And they should start doing it from tomorrow, not wait until another election again. Because
in fairness to you,
GCOM is a dysfunctional organization run by politicians.
Yeah, but GCOM cannot be transformed. GCOM will have to be reconfigured.
That's true.
In its present form, GCOM it's a lost cause. But this says before you go on, say sorry, Yoke. I just want to say a couple things. One is that Basil Williams and the Ali, they are aptly rep on the East Coast, so they have a right to go and check the area. Now, they must have received report that, whether Anil or whoever is giving card, and they need to go investigate. There's nothing wrong with that. And to say that the president came on the air and says nothing about go home, you can say what you want. The president can go and tell all his supporters go home. Guess what? They're going to say, you go and you relax. We're going to be where we want to be. You cannot blame, the politicians alone per se to say that, hey, all your supporters must conform with the law. You have your home. Your children don't conform with the law in the home, and there's only 3 or 4 of you there. So the thing is, it's difficult for us to blame politicians and say that, oh, we got to hold them accountable. Yes, our history, as Yoke said, has been a past where we had, issues with election, and people mistrust each other. But having said that, says now it's 8 o'clock your time. Any result coming in that you can tell us about?
But before you guys go,
it's a bit too early, Charles. Charles, it's a bit too early. It's a bit too early because you got to remember the process is at 6 o'clock. Whoever is in the line, the police will then go to the back of the line,
right?
So that everybody in front of them will vote. So you got to allow that voting to happen. So even though the police goes to the back of the line at 6 p.m., you still got to allow that to happen, those people in line to vote. So once they're voted and the policeman enters the polling station, the poll is then declared closed. So that necessarily is not 6 o'clock. That could be 6:45.
Yeah, it could be 7 o'clock. I agree.
So,
But one thing I
so
will say, the
sis,
police
what I
force
wanted
today.
to ask you, hold on, gentlemen. What I wanted to ask you is, we're going to bring on Brian now, who had taken a trip up East Coast to give us. Sis, if you want to go, but please return.
Yes, I need to go. I need to go. So
No, but
thank you,
before
gentlemen, for
he goes,
inviting me.
Before
Yeah,
Sis
especially
goes,
if you have any inkling of what the numbers are like from your camp, please join us again and let us know, and so that we can.
Well, I don't know how long you guys are going, because it actually will get. No, I don't think I'll be able to come back on, because it will get pretty intense from now until about 3 tomorrow morning. If you guys are on tomorrow night, definitely I'm happy to come.
Sis, I will get the numbers. It will be text to me. Don't worry.
all right.
All right, sir. You guys have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Good night, sir.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye-bye. Great, bye.
Brian, you just
No, the
joined
point I
us.
want
Brian,
to
good
make
night.
to concern the politics.
Hi, yo, good night to you.
Well, gentlemen, we just spoke about the incident at East Coast of Demerara. I must tell our viewers that we have had a few incidents. We'll go through it during the show. We have had another incident at Potentia. We have some videos that we don't feel comfortable airing some of these videos because it doesn't speak to good healthy election day. But we're looking at them. We got some incidents happening. So we've had 2 incidents of the East Coast that we know. One is at Monrepo and the other at Luziknan. Brian was there firsthand. He did some live streaming actually from this morning. Brian, firstly, what has been your experience visiting the different places of poll this morning?
It has been very quiet all day. Polling was intense early. I would want to say that, let's say the PVP areas that their voters came out early and they voted and went home. I noticed that in let's say the areas that you would want to say that it would be APNU areas, they tended to vote maybe after 10. They still had a lot of lines at 10, 11, 12. They PVP dominated areas where PVP usually get their mass votes from. By 11, 12, they were very, very quiet because they had already voted. Remember, York, every vote in every polling station only caters for roughly about 400 voters.
Correct.
So it's not that they're 1,000 or 1,500, 18. It's just 400, and 400 per station, and I think 2,400 stations, something that was in around Guyana.
So what are some of the polling stations you visited, polling areas?
We were through Sophia, Campbellville, in Georgetown. We moved around quite a few. We went into South, we went into Tugville. We were up the East Coast. We went all the way up to Enmore. We passed through, checked, and we were live streaming all along on the Brian Max Facebook page.
Correct.
And it was all very quiet, very, very quiet right through. And then we got a call at about 4 o'clock this afternoon to indicate that there was some kind of trouble in Monrepo. And we left town about 4:30. We got up there. It all started with a group of Afro-Guyanese basically turning up and standing on a bridge close to the Monrepo Primary School. And of course, the folks from Monrepo decided that if people are going to come and stand there, they're going to come out as well. And then, of course, the police came and they had they asked people to step back on the Monrepo side. The folks were still on the bridge who had come. I saw a lady there with a little wheel span in her hand and issuing some threats, but it was all much of nothing really and truly.
Yeah.
And after a while it was diffused. Mr. Nandalal came and he spoke to the PPP supporters, the people from Monrepo, and they cleared the roads and they allowed traffic to pass through. There wasn't much traffic passing anyway. And the situation was diffused and we left. Basically, by the time we left, it was all over.
Okay.
Both sides
Brian,
had kind of drifted off.
right. Brian, let me say, I mean, on behalf of a lot of the viewers and the people of the Andy Globes fan team, you did a fantastic job today and keep it up. To our viewers out there, if you want to see a replay, if you want to relook at how the voting went at a number of polling places, go to Brian Max Media, his Facebook page, and you will have a live stream of a lot of the areas. Brian also joined us at about 12:30 today. I was having an
Yeah,
interview with
I'm a,
Telesur, and so Brian was here. Brian, final word in terms of East Coast. When you left there, it was all dissipated and calm.
Very, very calm. It was pretty much calm. The Monroe incident had pretty much resolved itself out. Folks realized after a while that there was nothing much, and just a handful of people were standing around by the time we had left. And the matter was completely diffused. I think Mr. Nandalal did a fantastic job of calming the worries of the people who were standing there. He explained to them that there's nothing much that anyone can do just standing outside. That the polls, the ballots are being counted inside, and the place is secure. The police has a good perimeter of security around, and they took that very much, and they pretty much calmed down immediately. Some persons were a little more outspoken than some, but after a while, everybody understood, and it was pretty much calm, settled out totally.
Brian, I'm going to send you the link private mail to about the incidents at the West Bank. Have a look at it and
No
we'll chat
problem.
about it a little later. Thanks, Brian.
Great, no problem.
Gentlemen, any
Thank
questions
you.
for Brian before he goes?
Yeah. Before Brian go, was there any issues in the perceived APNU stronghold areas? Were having problems like we had in
okay,
Monripo
thanks.
or in Lusignan or other areas?
No, no, I saw no incidents at all. No group of anyone stepping over into their territory. It was all smooth voting, and otherwise for this one incident that I noticed, and the one in Patentia, I think. Other than that, it was pretty much calm all day, and everything went well. I took about 3 minutes to vote. When I walked in, 3 minutes later, I think I was out at the polling station. My wife as well, I took her a little late in the day. And Jonathan, my assistant here today, who is doing the camera work, he took probably about 5 minutes to vote at the Graham Hall primary location.
Okay. Wonderful.
So it has been
Brian,
quite calm and quite smooth so far, yo.
right. Brian, thank you. And please, as you get updates, text us or come on to the show again and give us more what's going on.
No problem at all, yo. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Thank you, Brian, and keep up the good job. To our viewers out there, that has been Brian Max. He has brought and we carried some of his feeds during the day of what's happening at the polling station. We also have on standby Miss Puran, who is the Prime Ministerial candidate for Change Guyana. She's going to come on and give us an update as to how she feel, what's her feeling for the day and how she thought it went. Welcome to our platform, ma'am.
Hi, good night. How are you?
Very well, thanks. How has the day been for you?
So far, I think that we've made an inroad into far that what the information that we receive, in fact, turns out to be, what is in fact the case.
Okay. And you're happy with the progress you and members of your party would have made, especially in the Georgetown area?
Yes, I think that within the short time that we've had, from October 29th to now, we've made significant strides. I only came on board in November, and I saw a huge improvement just from October. So I think what we've been able to do in such a condensed period of time is amazing.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. How is it going generally? What is the feedback you're getting from various parts of the country?
Well, I find, the people that I've been chatting with and being in contact with are persons who are very fed up of this divisive force that we have. I like to call it the True Coalition, which is APNU and the PPP. They're turning away from race politics and the divisive politics towards dealing with actual policy, because we're not benefiting as a nation from this race voting. The only people that are benefiting are those in power, and I don't really believe that they believe that it's a true democracy, because at the end of the day, no matter which party wins, you're going to have almost half of the population that's left, without any access to the resources of the country or any just access.
Okay.
But
And those are the things that people.
my question there, you can't blame the politician for that. You got to blame the people.
Yeah, blame the people.
If the people want to vote on race,
For the same
that
people,
is, and you're doing it over and over
for
again,
the
and you're
same
not
labels.
learning, then don't blame nobody for that. The question I want to ask you
Yeah,
is:
yeah.
was there any plan for exit poll? Was that done at all in Georgetown or any part in Guyana?
No.
I don't think any of the polls conducted were in fact scientifically done. I mean, it's just people pulling from their own database, their own party lines. So I don't think that any of them would actually be accurate.
All
I
right, two
think the
quick
problem,
questions.
as you mentioned, sorry, Dr. Bitaram, I think that what you mentioned there about the race-based vote is again what we keep saying all the time is the price of the presidency. And unless we can change our constitution, because the constitution says the party that wins the most votes gets the presidency. And that is why you have this big support base of the two big ethnic groups supporting their own party, hoping that the other one will outdo one and the other. And that's the problem. Unless we change that, we can talk from now until the cows come home to whatever it is. We will keep saying over and over, and this will never change. We need to
But
change the
it does not work
constitution.
for a multi-ethnic
But
society.
I
and
don't
two
even think that is
parties,
not the
British
only
Westminster
issue.
system.
I think internally in
I
some
ju-
of the parties there isn't democracy because I'm not sure even within the PPP if there's a really true fair election whether Mr. Ali or Mr. Jagdeo would win. So we need internal democracy within the parties.
Right, but
So
we inherit
all
a
of those are
system.
issues that
Let,
we have
let,
to deal with. It's
Race
not
is
only
only one
one broad
factor.
thing, the constitution.
Race is one
There's
factor.
a lot of small nitty-gritty issues that
I'm
have to be
looking at
dealt
the
with.
on the national side, race politics
let's
don't
take
help. It has not helped in 50 something years.
let's take Dr. Ramarak's questions.
Well, two quick questions. You're a new party, and your presidential candidate obviously is coming from a business background. So, question one.
Sorry, I'm
Um,
getting a bad reception at the moment.
well, that's the perception people have, right? He's connected with the hotel, and I mean, he's got that business background. So, but my question is, where do you think your support is coming from? Is it going to be from the business community? Is it going to be Georgetown based? And secondly, how do you think, as a new small party, how do you think you guys will do during this election? Do you think you'll get a seat, maybe 2 seats? Maybe make some
I
good-
am hopeful. I'm hopeful that we'll get more than 2 seats. Conservatively, I will say 2 seats.
Well, where is your support coming from? Where do you think you're getting your support from? Is it from the business community, young people, people in the urban centers?
I think it's a combination of the younger people, the business community, and older, I would say, more educated, worldly people. That's what I would say. Um, but it's not just them. I was pleasantly surprised to see people who wanted, even from the rural community, who want to move away from being cane cutters and who want to move away from the general way of life that they've always had. I mean, I saw one person post today that who traditionally voted for the PPP, who was raised in a home and she was able to hold on to our policy and our messages and say that she's voting um, outside of her norm because she wants a future for her children. So I think that we've been able to etch away at all groups, but primarily, certainly, I would think it's the business community and the youth who would be voting for us.
I have a
Well, I
question.
do not, but what if your party doesn't do well? Is Change Guyana prepared to continue in the struggle to be out there and fight for constitutional change and so on?
Of course, I joined this fight because I got tired of having the same broken system. And I think a lot of people have now picked up the same fighting spirit, and I would definitely be continuing, and the party will be continuing in its fight against this racial division, against the corruption, against the mismanagement, and seeking constitutional reform because it's something that we need really urgently.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question. Okay, go ahead. I have a question. What's your name again? What's your
Mr.
name?
Puran.
Miss Puran. How you know you're going to win 2 seats? Did you take any polls at all during the campaign?
So, I mean, not official polls, but this is what our general consensus from having the persons on the ground do the math based on people who said that they would support it. But it's not, as I said, it's not a scientific poll. It's just, you know, I think
Wish.
every party has been doing it the same
It's a
way.
But
wish.
but as you know, crowds don't translate into vote.
It's a
But let me
wish.
ask you another question.
I'm very much aware of that. That's why I started off in my opening statement
Okay,
by
but
saying that.
let me ask you. Let me say this to you. You said you're going to continue, but do you know in Guyana, third parties don't last more than 2 election cycles? United Forces 64 and 68, it died. AFC 2006, 2011, it melted away. The
Well,
WPA is the same thing.
There's
Pardon me?
nothing etched in stone to say that that's
There's
supposed
always
to. It's not like
she can be the
it's not
first.
like the Ten Commandments
History.
there.
She can be the
So
first. Yeah. You can be the first.
Okay, I liked your sentiments, but you have to face reality. Third parties do not get money for campaigns. They do not get,
well,
because no one believes they can win an election.
especially in the
well,
polarized
number
society.
one, luckily for us, we actually have the leader of our party is pretty well to do of himself, and he is most of the campaigning was done from his funds, right? But additionally, that's not true. There are so many people who want to be part of this change, who haven't officially come on board as yet because simply the time was too short. But I do not believe that uh, race politics has a very long span left in Guyana anyway, so that within the next 10 to 15 years, we will have to focus uh, on policy because
Policy
people are
infrastructure,
much more, they're educated now. So you can't continue down the lines. And additionally, if you look at the influx of immigrants, etc., we're going to have a different demographic altogether. There's going to be a lot of mixed people. There's going to be Spanish people. There's a lot of different races. So you will have to move away from the traditional type of party-based
Yeah.
system.
Right. Well,
I
you have
think
a
I think
point there, but
before Dr. Yog,
go ahead.
just one question to you is I just got a note from someone here. It says the projection of an Indian village and an African village. African village 70% turnout today versus Indian village 90% turnout. For the 70% in APNU villages, 90% vote for APNU, 8% for the PPP, and 2% for the small parties. In the Indian village, 93% vote PPP, 2% vote APNU, and 5% vote for small parties. And this was for Ansgrove and La Jealousy.
Yeah.
My question to you is this. You talk up this young people make up like more than 70% of the electorate in Guyana. And if the young people seen what the PP did, what APNU did for the last 28 years combined, and they cannot make a decision now based on the manifesto of the small parties, do you see any hope that that will change in the next 15, 20 years?
Of course, because you see, not every young person has been sensitized on how they should vote, on what policy means to them. So I think we have to get to grassroots education and get young people involved. Let them understand their civic duties. Let them understand. Not every young person. You see, you're equating every young person and probably thinking everyone has a formal education or that they're not swayable. That's not true. So we have to get, if it is that we haven't made any inroads or we haven't been given any seats, it doesn't mean that you stop there. It means that you have to start with grassroots education, start from the beginning, and meet the electorate. And I think that you can have a movement if they appreciate why it is that we have to move away from the pattern of voting. Because let's face facts, who has been benefiting? Not them. And the minute they realize that we, the young people, my mom, even the older people, my mom and my dad, we've been living our entire lives in poverty
Yes,
in our villages, they will move away from it. If you hit people with facts, and I
So,
think that once you confront people with facts, they will move ahead, and they will get away from this whole emotional
but
aspect that is
you
attached
see,
to voting.
you see, facts. I do not disagree with you, and I applaud all the newer parties for coming on the scene because we do need everybody to be able to express themselves. But what has driven a lot of the young people's dreams and excitement is not so much the facts of history, but the opportunities of the future. That belies what is driving everybody. Who and which party they feel will place them and their lives in better stead. So here is an interesting statistic we just had on the screen. Approximately 35,000 persons have voted in the last three elections for the smaller parties. Now, the fact that there are probably about 8 smaller parties mean if you divide 37,000 by 8, whether there is a seat to go around is a question that Dr. Rose might want to talk to us about. Here is my question for you, and please don't take this negatively. Success is in the long haul. What if you do not get a seat? Is your party prepared to continue the drive, the education, the sensitization so that the next time will be a better footholding because by the next time you have more educated persons?
Of course, if I didn't think that our party would do that, I would not have been a part of this process because it makes absolutely no sense to complain about issues that we face every day in this country and not actually walk the walk. And we're going to have to, if that's the case, we're going to have to go back from ground zero and build ourselves all the way up. And I don't see that being impossible. To say that is impossible is to say that we do not have intelligent people in this country, and I will not
Correct.
believe that.
Correct. Well, let me read to you a message from Mr. Chaitram Prasad. He says, please give the young lady lots of credit and that yes, he agrees with your assessment, and asked me to convey that to you, to give you lots of credit and on your eloquence and your way of thinking. So congratulations. Any other questions for our guest?
And I will give you a lot of credit too, but I will say this to you. Come what may tomorrow, you can't wait for another election. You have to start campaigning again from tomorrow. Okay? That's my advice to you.
And I fully appreciate that. You can't wait until the last minute to get what you need to be done. What needs to be done? Of course not.
Correct.
Right.
My question to you,
Question.
to Mr. Chairman. What regions are you contesting in?
Sorry?
What regions are you contesting the elections in?
We're contesting 7 regions. I think the only regions that we're not contesting are Region 2, Region 7, and Region 9.
7 and 9. Okay, are you expecting favorable results in the others that you're contesting? At least
Great.
2.
Let me also. He's saying that you're expecting favorable results in all the regions you're contesting.
Yes, that's the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright,
Let me just before you come in, Brian. Let me just alert our viewers that approximately at 8:30, another 15 minutes thereabouts, we will be joining GCOM for a live update. So stay with us as we have our discussion as to what has happened today and how voting went. And also know that on the same platform, you will get a GCOM press conference that we will be bringing to you live here at approximately 8:30. Back to our guests tonight and our other panel members.
All right. My question to you is, what sort of policy underpin your party? Are you a capitalist party, free market party, or a socialist party?
Brian, they're business people, and
Well,
and the elections finish, yeah, so the campaigning
no,
is done.
no, let her answer. Let her answer.
Well, we believe in giving more of the power to the people and to the private enterprise and to have a smaller government, if that answers your question.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
What I like, young ladies,
Wonderful.
your passion, and I wanted you to continue like that. I think with you being the helm of that party and the candidate, I think Guyana bodes well. So thank you for your contribution. I hope that the
Thank you.
people listen to you and you get those seats that you're looking for. If not, as Dr. Rose said, continue the game again, start it tomorrow. And for the next election, I think you'll do very well. I like your passion. Continue the good work.
Thank you.
I like your focus. Change
Yeah.
in policy
Ms.
for the
Puran,
future.
thank you for joining us tonight, and please be on standby. We may call on you again for more updates. But generally, as before you leave us, in terms of the feedback you would have gotten from various places that your party contested in,
Yes.
would any of your members or your voters been disenfranchised? Did you experience, or did any of your members experience any problems in exercising their votes?
Well, I'm only aware of one. If you were a young guy, he was 17 at the time when he got his ID card, and then he couldn't find his name on the voters list. I'm not sure whether he was able to work through the glitch and find his name on some other list. So that's the only thing that we've encountered so far.
Okay. So generally for you and your supporters out there, you've had a relatively calm and good election day.
Yes, it so far has been uneventful for us.
Wonderful. Well, best of luck as the results roll out later tonight and all of tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and let's stay tuned.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. So our viewers out there, yes, we continue to look at what's going on across the country. We have a panel of expertise here that looks not just at the numbers, but at the passion that have been displayed, all across the country. I must alert you that, and this might be a discussion point for us over the next couple of minutes, there has been another problem area that was highlighted in the quarantine end. Yeah. It would appear that 3 days ago, the government declared the eastern border closed. Right. The eastern border being the border between us and Suriname, the Nikeri end. As you know, there were persons that would have been traversing over the river, and there was it was deemed to be illegal at one time, but there were various entry points all along Springlands, Corriverton, where boats would come and they would dock it's been regularized at the customs area to get themselves checked and regularized. That was deemed closed 3 days ago under the banner of the risk of coronavirus. Now, in speaking to some of the observers this morning, it was brought to my attention that there is no reported case of coronavirus in Suriname. And so it was a lot of the people in Berbice felt that the move was made to disenfranchise the people in Nikeri, the Guyanese people in Nikeri who, find domestic work or find other work but would come home because it's just 10 minutes, it's probably about 35 minutes ride over the waters to get home. So that is one of the problem areas. I'm awaiting a feedback from quarantine to see whether there was any resolution of that, because what it meant that people resorted to traversing the rivers illegally to get here to do what they felt was their duty to exercise their votes. But your comments, gentlemen.
No, Yoga, I just want to set the record straight. I don't think the whole eastern border was closed. I think only the backtrack portions were closed. So, and you can understand why that you don't want, suppose foreign people are coming into the country to vote. So it's not the whole border. Just want to set that
Foreign
straight.
people cannot vote. If
Only
you're not on the voters list, you can't
the
vote.
official parts of the border was not closed. So people had a chance just go through the official channels. Just
more people travel backtrack because they don't have the passport or something.
Going through backtrack.
No, backtrack is legal right now.
Every day in the papers now you see how many people in trouble
No,
because.
but what I'm saying to you, they close
why
it
they
because
can't use official channels?
those
I mean, that's
because
my
they don't have a passport, and the reason why they close it because they thought about this coronavirus. But as
No, but
Dr. Mohammed said, there's
Dr.
no
Rose,
coronavirus in Suriname.
No,
there's
Rose,
none.
let me just inform Brian of this. So here, Brian, to your point though, because it's an interesting analysis we have to do.
Yeah.
So your question is why the people didn't travel along the official route. You have a point, but guess what? The official route makes one trip, right?
Per day.
Whereas the unofficial, that's the ferry. The
Right.
non-ferried passengers that come with the common boats, they make multiple trips. In other words, persons come over, they do what they got to do, and they go back to work. So
Doc, let me make a point. Let me make a point to you. You know, when the oil money started to flow, all those backtrack and all those things, they will have to be closed. I mean, there's no two ways around it. All those people in and out the border, or the country is going to be overrun.
I don't know where Brian got from. Here in the United States,
you cannot do that.
In the United States, we are the largest oil producer in the world, and millions coming through Mexico. How do you close that border? But the point is this. The point is this. The point is this. Whether the government closed the backtrack or not, that's irrelevant. People will still travel backtrack. So
Charles, it is not backtrack. It is not illegal. These people come and they are regularized upon landing. In other words,
they're being stamped at ports of entry. It's legal. The backtrack is now made it legal about 3 years ago.
It is not illegal.
But these people,
whatever you come with, they give you permission to enter the country. If you don't have a passport, then you get a permission.
As a Barbadian, from Region 6, it is unusual what the government has done, and what is more unusual is the reason that they have given. Now, the point is, there are suspicion, and I've spoken with some people on the ground in Barbados, is that they are trying to control people who may be returning from Suriname and coming over to vote. Now, obviously, if the process is regularized, you have the registration process, people will know who you are when you go to vote, then what exactly is the concern? Because as was mentioned before, there is no coronavirus in Suriname, and you're seeing those who are coming outside of Suriname from people like Germany and so on. There is no serious evidence that those people have contracted the disease. So it is unusual that the government has made this move because there's a high volume of traffic. A lot of Barbadians depend, on what's on that trafficking and what's going on between Suriname.
And what's unusual, Dr. Amrat, what's unusual is that the closure happens now. 3 days before today and 4 days after today, and then it's open again.
I would say disaggregate those numbers because I don't think everybody's coming to vote. People might be traveling for business, people are coming home.
Right, exactly.
And a number of other things related. So I don't think you can lump all of them and say, they stopped because they were coming to vote.
But the assumption by the government is say they closed it because of the coronavirus. Why open it in 5 days' time?
That might be a factor.
No, but in 5 days' time, the virus is still there.
You read that, but you said you're assuming there's a virus coming over.
No, the government said that.
I don't know. You said
the government said they closed it. The Minister of Public Health said she closed it because of fear of the coronavirus coming into Guyana. No, I'm telling you what she said. It's not likely.
No, the government.
She said to prevent the coronavirus from coming into Guyana.
I can give you a plausible reason.
Hold on. Give me a reason afterwards.
Yeah.
The government did blunder throughout our border with Suriname. How long is that border, Doctor? You know the
10 minutes cross.
the length of our border with Suriname.
Miles and miles of border. 270 miles.
For the government to say I'm stopping that, it's a stupid statement. That's one.
I disagree.
Two, it is as we mentioned today, coronavirus excuse is the worst excuse you can make because Suriname don't have coronavirus.
Not yet.
There's no
We
evidence
don't
of
know
it.
that. No evidence.
So why they did that, I just don't know why they did it. Except it's a very stupid thing to do, and you'll open back in 5 days. Where is the virus? It disappear in 5 days?
No, but if they close, if they closed it because of the virus,
on.
why they allow the main ferry to cross still? They should shut the main ferry down too.
I'm sure
But don't forget, there is
we
another
don't have the
factor.
information.
Don't-
You guys are not public
don't
health.
forget-
No.
Listen to this.
No.
There is a
Let me
large
read-
outbreak of corona in Italy and in other parts
No,
of
but
Germany. And in
Brian,
We
Holland.
talk about Suriname. We talk about Suriname.
Wait, hold on.
Let me-
There's a lot of
Let me
traffic
read
between
Kaichur
Suriname
News
and
to you
Holland.
guys.
Yes,
Gentlemen.
no, there is a heavy traffic between Suriname and Holland.
What's his
So
name, Brian?
The way how
But
it's
gentlemen,
done,
gentlemen,
Brian, you shouldn't
Brian.
defend this because you might look stupid in the eyes of the public.
I'm says
Brian.
Frankly
plausible.
speaking.
I'm says plausible.
Let me-
Because if
ask
they
you,
close,
let me ask
no, if they close the
You
border,
are
if they close the border,
You can take- you
no,
can go and
Brian,
say, okay, there's people, you know they didn't.
Brian, if they close it,
How will you know?
if they close it because of the virus, why they don't close the main ferry? People
will
still
you know?
traveling.
They want people pass through the official
Well,
channels.
that's
That's
what
done in
I'm
every
thinking.
country. Go through official
Maybe you
channels.
want people to document who's traveling back and
Going to
forth.
official
Maybe that's the
channels.
reason. But to say coronavirus, I wouldn't agree with that.
I don't know if it's the
Backtrack is official as well.
No, if they go
So
to
gentlemen,
channels, they can see who's
let
coming
me
in and who's
let
leaving.
Backtrack is the
me-
same thing.
No,
let me clarify this. Hold on. So let me clarify this, and to quote from Kaichur News as well. Brazil that has reported cases.
One.
That border has
One
not
from
been
Italy.
Hold on.
One from Italy.
Brian, let me ask you this: is there coronavirus in the U.S.?
A lot.
Two dead,
No,
two dead in
But we,
Washington.
No, hold on.
but we haven't stopped you guys from coming
but
to
the US is
Guyana.
probably about 2,000. It's probably about 2,000 in the US.
But we haven't stopped you guys from coming.
It was a lame excuse, and the government was caught in the pants down.
No, I don't buy
It was a
that.
lame excuse.
I'm never
I
going
don't
to
buy
finish
that.
because I don't know the facts.
We don't have the information, so you don't assume anything.
What is the source?
When you
What's
have,
the source of that information?
what is yeah.
The Minister of Public
No, it's
Health.
in Kaichur News. I remember.
The Minister of Public Health
But
making it
Minister-
public. I heard it on
hold
the
on.
news. I heard it in the
So
news in
Brian-
Guyana.
Brian, let me tell you what maybe you should have been wrapping Dr. Rose with, eh?
Yeah, okay.
That
Dr. York, sorry to
that
interrupt.
the issue has been that the government feels there is a risk that if you come over backtrack, somebody might escape the views of the customs and border people, and they might enter into the country. That has been the risk that the ministry would have expressed, that is carried by Kaichur News. However, it was deemed to be ridiculous by a lot of observers because the same same diligence has not been exercised at the Lethem end and other ends where we have open borders.
Dr. York, we're gonna go over
Hold
to
on.
GCOM's press conference.
I don't
now,
want to sound
as
like
we're live.
Mississippi.
Okay. So hold on, but hold on. Before you go, let me tell viewers that we will be taking you will see the screen change. We're gonna go over to GCOM to have an input from that live press conference there as soon as Devin is ready. So it may be mid-conversation that we're cut off,
Okay.
but we're giving Devin that ability to take us away as soon as he wants to. So Brian, yes, it's there.
I don't know if you guys can hear anything, but I can't. There's no volume on my end.
For those of you who, just to remind the viewing audience that our 339 polling stations across the country, and of course with the official list of electors being 616,998. Colleagues, as we move forward, this morning I provided the breakdown of the total number of electors by region, as well as the number of polling stations by region. I would just like to recap so that as we get into the process later this evening, that you will understand how those results are going to be flowing. So in region 1, with 99 polling stations, 80,952 electors, 135 polling stations. Region 3, 355 polling stations, catering for 100,758 electors. In Region 4, 879 polling stations with 285,618 electors. In Region 5, 158 polling stations, catering for 663 electors. In Region 6, 378 polling stations, catering for 99,131 electors. In Region 7, 82 polling stations, 14,887 electors. In Region 8, 55 polling stations, 7,431 electors. And Region 9, 73 polling stations with 17,771 electors. And in Region 10, 125 polling stations with 33,808 electors. At this time, I will now invite the CEO to provide us with an update as to the day's proceedings, and then he will also explain as to the process going forward this evening. CEO, let's keep going, please.
It has been a long day. And as Madam Chair has indicated, thankfully it has come to an end. Polling has concluded. The next subset, or the current subset being done, is that counting is taking place at all polling stations across the spectrum, across the country. It is our hope that that count will conclude in a good time to allow for the statements of poll to be placed, first of all, at a conspicuous location outside of the polling station. And secondly, for the statements intended for the returning officer or returning officers and the CEO. It's uplifted by the deputy returning officers and it's transmitted to the offices of the RO and the CEO. Our own plan is to ensure that that process commences and concludes as far as practicable this evening. Whether it's concluded or not this evening, Statements would be received by returning officers who will all commence a public verification process, which includes the public display of each statement in every district, and that process will continue until all the statements for those particular districts are concluded. Once that is completed, the returning officers will declare the results in the respective districts. While that is happening, no doubt the ROs would have ensured that the statements for the CEO is forwarded on the escort to his office. So that is a process that continues throughout this evening. I'm advised by the returning officers that in most instances that process is likely to commence at about 22 hours this evening in some instances, and in other instances the agents would have been informed that between the hours of 21 hours and 22 hours. Commencement, as I indicated this morning, is dependent on the receipts of statements from the DROs coming into those offices. That is what the next 9 hours entails. And all things being equal, if tomorrow, as I did indicate earlier today, the statements for some districts will be with the returning officers, that allows for a declaration in each of the 10 districts where voting took place. That is all I have for you for now, as we await the process that is ongoing at this point in time, that it goes smoothly, and that the statements derived are transported, and that the boxes in which those votes are, they're taken to the safe location for safety. So that is all I have for you for now, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, CEO. At this time, I will now invite questions from floor. Please ensure that you indicate by raising your hand so that the microphone gets to you, and you indicate the name and the media house you're from.
Good night. Mr. Lowenfield, Ragavir Prime News. Could you say what would be the realistic time frame in keeping with your regulations, your internal communications, your tabulation, for the final results to be released? And even as your tabulation is ongoing, will we have some real-time updates as the districts release their numbers? And my final question, sir, is GCOM investigating what happened or what led to some amount of disturbance at Mon Report this afternoon? And did you detect any irregularities in the voting process in that particular area?
Thank you very much. As far as, I'll start with the Mon Report issue. I think I'll have to, GCOM will have to await the investigations that are currently being undergone. My latest information is that there is, well, the count is going on and there's a standoff, my word, a standoff among party constituents. The police is present, and I'm sure reports will emanate from that location, from the police, and from our own presiding officers who are currently still at the Monrepo Primary School compound conducting the comp.
Just for clarity, you are doing an investigation, as in GCOM is doing an investigation?
As soon as the process there concludes, I mean, before us at the moment is the fact that we need to bring closure to the day's proceedings. Those POs, those DROs who are engaged, no doubt our investigation will continue as soon as they are free from the completion of the task that is before them at the moment. As it relates to a time for final declaration, as you put it, you will recall that I said it is the Commission's desire to have the final declaration of results in the earliest possible time. I will not commit to a date and time, except to say that as the process moves, I'm strongly assuming that by tomorrow midday, all the ROs would have had their declarations in the respective districts. That is as far as I'll go at this point in time relative to timelines for the final declaration. I'm going one day at a time, as it were. And your third question?
I was asking about real-time release from the ROs. Anything like that would be done?
And I wish to provide you with a URL now, which is a secure platform that will go live immediately after we start processing that information. And so you can go to www.GuyanaElections.com. So that's a secure platform. The updates will also be sent to you, as I indicated earlier, in JPEG and PDF formats via email, as well as via our Facebook page. So you will have those periodic updates. I can't say definitively if it's going to be every hour, 2 hours, but as the information comes into us and it's processed, and we have a sizable portion that we can release, we will proceed in that regard. So the URL again, it's www.GuyanaElections.com. You can also check our Facebook page as well as the emails that you will receive in JPEG and PDF format. Do we have another question at the back? Just now, Mr. Chabral at the back.
Jules Brown from TV6 News in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm just wondering, in terms of the Commission's resources and so on, what would have been the biggest challenge in having this election take place, both in terms of not just the resources, but also the time in which GCOM would have had to get everything ready for this election?
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Brown, for that question. I'm sure that you would have been following as it relates to our journey to this end. It took a lot in terms of, one, our operational activities, the planning in that regard. We started training, which is one of the longest subset in terms of our timeline for that. And of course, legally, a number of the statutory timelines is included in the Representation of the People Act, which guides the conduct of general and regional elections in Guyana. So on that premise, observing all those legal and procedural requirements, those are some of the key factors that we had to consider in our preparation for the conduct of these elections. And no doubt the conduct of the polls today is evident in terms of the amount of work that we would have had to put in on the ground, both logistically and operationally. So that's where we're at on that.
This morning at one polling station, I did observe some long lines. I'm not sure if that was a combination of the people coming out early to vote in large numbers and also any change in the process. If you could help give me some clarification on that.
The lines at the polling stations, one, what we found on the ground was that some persons initially did not take the proactive step in checking to ensure which polling station they were voting. You would recognize that we have polling place, and in that polling place we have a number of polling stations. And while they were adequately and clearly marked, some persons, without even paying attention to the signs, opted to wait in the line to deal with the information clerks. In some instances, there might have been some challenges on that part in terms of the pace at which information clerks were moving, but I think that in itself contributed to some of that backlog in terms of the lines. Where possible, where we got that information, we had teams on the ground who provided the necessary support to ensure that persons were able to quickly move the process forward. In some cases, operationally, it's not changing the process, as you said, but in some instances where we could have developed 2 voting compartments instead of 1, that kind of shift was done, but not in terms of the process. The process is what is required by law, so that is what we, of course, had to adhere to.
Just one other thing, any reports thus far in terms of any issues concerning ballots that had to be rejected for any reason? Or would you have to wait until later on?
Well, we'll have to wait until the count is over to have that kind of determination. Thank you very much. I think Mr. Cabral.
Yes, Yolanda. Could you say whether there was an incident at St. Ambrose Primary which resulted in the arrest of at least 4 persons? I'm asking this simply for a confirmation from Jacob's perspective. And can you say whether the district declarations will be made available on your platform?
I can ask the CEO. I'm not aware of the issue at St. Ambrose. I'm not sure if the CEO has received that report.
No, I have not received any report about arrests at St. Ambrose. I was advised of an arrest taking place on the East Coast. I was not advised as to any arrests in the city.
And what's that arrest about you're referring to in the East Coast?
I'm advised that it was related to the allegation that an individual was making an effort to vote more than once.
That's a female or a male?
Say again?
A female or a male? Man or woman?
I didn't ask that. I'm not sure. I was merely informed as to what obtained. I did not get into the details of whether it was masculine or feminine.
And this is Moripo you're referring to?
No, I'm not sure if it's Monrepo. The reports I get informs that there's an incident and police were called in and the person would have moved to a location. Those details I do not inquire in at this point in time. That information will be coming to me at a later stage.
Mr. Lowenfield, can you say whether, as part of your investigation, you are in possession of an ID card of one belonging to one of two men who bear the same name?
No, I don't. The investigation to determine that is with the police. I or GCOM doesn't have any ID card. The investigations are being conducted by the relevant authority.
Thank you.
Mr. Chabral, just to respond to your other question, I will alert the media as it relates to the time and place of the declarations at the regional levels. I know the radio stations in the respective regions will try to bring that coverage, but from GCOM's end, we have not put any systems in place for a live coverage of those declarations. It is something that we can possibly explore, but at this point, we have not put any systems in place for a live declaration, but the radio stations in the respective regions will be bringing the coverage of those. The results. That's correct. That's correct.
Leroy Smith, Big Smith Newswatch. Ms. Watt, could you say if there was a situation in Essequibo where someone voted proxy for someone and the person was represented by a proxy subsequently showed up to vote in Region 2, and could you also say, based on your information from staff and maybe the police, outside of the case that Mr. Lowenfield would have mentioned, if there have been any other arrests for election offenses, and if yes, what are some of those offenses?
I haven't, on the District 2 issue of proxy and who voted for whom, that has not yet, that has not reached us, or no one would have reported to us such a situation. As far as police actions today, I'm aware that in District 3, the police were called out. And there again, I'm advised that there was a standoff at the villages. Not good intent. Mr. Eastman, what's the name of the village? Sisters Village in District 3. So I'm aware of that entry, and at another point in time, we were told that there is a buildup of individuals at potential. Our investigations revealed that that was not so. And the other being at Monrepo as far as police actions during the course of the day went. So I have not received any other report that would have necessitated police action across the country.
Javon Vickery, HGP Nightly News. Could the team from GCOM, have you received reports that there were persons, especially in Region 3, that were turned away from polling stations because they wore colors that gave the indication that they were supporting parties? Could you explain if there is a rule for that? Secondly, a lot of persons in the same Region 3 were directed to vote in Tong because they were registered during the verification process. And when they went to the polling stations, they were told that they have to, some of them who reside in Tong and other places, that their names were at other polling stations. Could you confirm whether this was true, and if you could shed some light on how that could have happened?
I will address you on the colors. while the law is silent on colors, we have asked the political parties to be responsible because they've signed to a code of conduct which ask for peaceful elections. Now, on the question of colors, we have now 11 parties, and it would be difficult to identify the colors that people would identify quickly is yellow, green, and red, as you know, but they're not au fait with the other colors. But if somebody goes to the polling station without any insignia, it would just be a color. But if that person begins to, say, canvass, approach people on the outside of the polling station, who are you voting for? Would you be giving this party your vote? Then that would amount to canvassing. Otherwise, if the person would have just come in like that, well, the person has not committed any offense. But what we did ask political parties to be responsible and to, not to offend. So if they wear the colors, what can we do? They ought to be allowed to vote.
On the question
but are you aware that this happened?
I am not aware.
Okay.
On the question of displacement, you said that persons from District 3 had to come to town and so on and so forth.
Some of them.
Yeah. I think, yes, we've had instances of persons of displacement. In 2019, GCOM conducted house registration exercise and a claims and objections exercise. Our mode is that at the end of every exercise, the database or the transactions garnered from any exercise is cross-matched against the remainder of our database. This cross-matching is done by a service provider who operates outside of our jurisdiction. In the last cross-matching exercise, the Commission was made aware about the quality of the service being provided, which, as was said very clearly by commissioners, that it was of a poor standard. We tried our best to minimize the quality and so on. And at the end of the day, there were some instances that the matches, the quality of prints were so bad that we could not have truthfully identified who some persons were. That led us, notwithstanding all our efforts, to some persons being displaced. A situation that the Commission is not very happy with, notwithstanding there are just a handful of that category of persons.
Mr. Lowenfield, you said it's just a handful of persons who were displaced. Could you explain to us how that displacement is working? Is it a case, as I have noted some instances where, based on their registration record, their address of record is in one district, whereas their polling place is in another? For example, we had a situation where someone's address on the NRR, on the OLE, was in Buxton, but their polling place was in Soesdijk. Have you noted such situations? And when you say a handful, How much is a handful?
In
And how was it resolved?
In a base of 660,000, 25 is a handful. I think when we get down to the history of the transactions that are displayed, and we trace the original registration area or the original area from which the individual would have done that transaction, and we would have cross-matched that. The original station may be, as you said, Timiri, in the first instance. In the second instance, it may be a village on the East Coast. When the investigation of the prints is done, and based on the quality, sometimes based on the quality of the product, it is very difficult to discern the 10 prints of an individual. And therefore, we do what is our own cross-matching, our placement of side-by-side to ensure that each individual is indeed and in fact what they say. And in these handful of instances, we were unable to do so.
How was it resolved? You haven't answered that part. How was it resolved? Because these persons probably might have but might not have voted. How have GCOM resolved
At this point in time, we are, because of the same instances or the question you've asked, that Tom, who should have been voting in 3, is now in 4. It's a matter that is correctable. So now that we have come to the election where the entire issue is at the fore, and the individuals who would have been displaced are identified, then corrective action can and will be taken now.
How? If you could explain it, how?
If you, as you asked me, you should have been voting in Region 3. You are not listed in 3, but you are listed in 4. GCOM has to correct that to ensure that you are listed in the address, your correct address, every time and all the time. So now that you have shown your hand to say to us, look, GCOM, I am not in 3, I'm in 4, please correct that. Come ask me all the questions.
These persons voted? Do you know they voted?
Yes, we are aware of some instances where persons made noises that GCOM has them in 3 when they should have been in 4. They approached our offices and indicate that we have displaced them, and we made arrangements to ensure that they exercise their franchise.
Are there any other questions? We'll take this one over here first.
Hi, Dylan Dishong from Loop News in Trinidad. Now, earlier on, I had asked about canvassing and parties having their paraphernalia all around polling stations. And on my way back to my hotel, I was seeing on Facebook that there were ads from the 2 major parties regarding why you should go out and vote for them. So I wanted to know, get GCOM's perspective on if they consider this canvassing and whether parties agree to the code that they signed.
I think with the new dispensation of social media, where everything remains there on social media, it is difficult to have a control span on that. Previously, when we were just focusing on the traditional media, radio and television, as the law prescribes, that should conclude at least 24 hours before Elections Day. But as it relates to social media, we're in a new dispensation, and therefore what we will essentially be asking parties to do in that regard is to possibly remove all those content from their page or possibly hide their page completely. So Again, that is something that we do not have control over, but of course the law does speak to campaigns concluding at least 24 hours before election day.
Julia Johnson, Mr. Lowenfield. You had said earlier today that you were supposed to tell us about how the tentage worked.
Oh, what?
Tentage, your tents that you have put up for people to vote. And I want to take you back to Monrepo, where you seem to have so much problems, even from the inception, from the congestion of the polling places to the congestions also for polling stations in that very area. Is it at all now another leap, another step in this same direction of getting people to vote and getting those votes right? Right in the sense that the persons who are supposed to vote there voted?
On the question of tents, I think you would agree that thankfully we had excellent weather today for voting, Commissioner. Because we did deliberate as far as the weather goes and the impact rain would have had should there be rain. So we're thankful that it was a sunny day all day, and I have not received, or we have not received any complaints relative to anyone taking ill or any such during the course of the day in the tentage we would have provided for polling stations, not only in the East Coast corridor, but across the country. The second question was
Monrepo and the overcrowding and the congestion.
The placement of electors is done within the divisions and subdivisions where they reside. Because as you're aware, every PCU, every division is Guyana, is already there and it's peopled. The Commission will provide guidelines that polling stations should be no more than X amount of electors to a division. So as far as we're aware, the peopling, it's already done because we have the divisions. When the divisions exceed the numbers as the policy numbers, the numbers provided by the Commission, an additional polling station is made or is created to facilitate those 400 or 450 electors. The issue of Monrepo followed the same stream. Monrepo as a division or as two divisions with very many subdivisions catered for the village, both Monrepo North and South, for 18 polling stations. Based on the population of the community, the Commission advised that as far as practicable, we minimize the use of private residences, which is what we did. And I think at the end of the day, based on the outcome of today's activity, I think we're in a very good place as far as the policy direction provided to the Secretariat by the Commission is. If you do comparisons with other divisions and subdivisions across the country, you will recognize that it's all the same, where we have, in the main, government buildings being used and other buildings being used. And in some instances, it's just that we have to use private residences because there is no other. This year,
all right, and we're back live. Thanks to our viewers out there. That was quite some interesting questions being posed by various sections of the media to GCOM. I must say that the website GuyanaElections.com is down. It doesn't take you anywhere at this stage. So I presume it will come up at some time.
Drop it.
Yes, go on.
Dr. Ramarak, can you just click the mic button on the bottom of your screen?
He can't see you.
Yes. Dr. Ramarak, you're back with us. I think you need to click the mute button at the bottom of your screen. You're muted.
How's that?
Yes, there you go.
Well, I was saying I was expecting a little bit more excitement from the three folks who represent GCOM, for an election night. And secondly, I wanted to hear something. I know people had questions, but I wanted to hear some, time frame as to when we'll have some kind of results. So this way, if everybody have that expectation right now, so I know it seems like it's going to be a very long night.
Yeah. I think every viewer, in fact, when Lowenfield responded to the question to say sometime by mid-tomorrow, he's hoping for some kind of a declaration. I think at that moment I saw almost 1,000 persons dropped off from their feed. So I think a lot of people went to view that thing with that hope in mind. But we're hoping that, as results come in. And to your question, though, Doc, we are getting some, and mind you, viewers, these are unverified feedback we're getting from various parts of the country. So far, primarily from Berbice area. For example, we have gotten one that says number 56 primary school that has 7 APNU plus AFC, 0 CG, 1 for UP, I think, 191 for PPPC, and 0 for the rest of the parties, of a total of 204 votes cast. 191 PPPC and 7 for APNU AFC. That was just one of the areas number, I think it's 56 primary school in quarantine.
Yeah.
Well, what I didn't get clear from the pool there, the press, I thought they would ask him, can you not have a parallel run with the statement of poll? Why does it have to go first? The deputy returning officer collects those statements, take it to the returning officer, then he or she will tabulate it, then send it to the CEO. I think that's crazy. Why don't we have a parallel run where the returning officer gets it, but also the CEO gets it, so they can do the tabulation, and at the end, everybody's answer should be the same, the number should be the same. So I really don't know why they're creating all this hurdle for 400,000 votes maybe. I really don't know.
Well, Charles, to the point that, look, I don't disagree with you, but for the sake of the integrity of the final numbers, I would want to say, well, you know what, providing it's really good and there is integrity at stake, the GCOM has the way with this, because in this day of fake news and fake reporting and people getting excited and doing all kinds of things, you have to look at what's the right thing to do here.
One of the things I think GCOM should have is about time to start with voting machines. It is a simple project. Government spends money here and there, PEP, PNC, whatever it is. But voting machines are not expensive. And they should have this all across the country. It's about time, if it's about modernization, that should be modernization project number one. And cut out this voting, this nonsense about counting votes. The machines will count the votes for you,
But Dr. Rose, the process of counting votes has not, all the stations are basically finished by now.
I know.
So the number crunching has not been difficult. It takes an hour, takes 2 hours, depending on the population or the numbers of voters there. The issue here is the verification process that the statement of polls would have to go through. GCOM would require a signed original before they could declare it.
Right. By 10 o'clock, I will get the results from both parties, but I was told I can't declare them.
Okay.
I can't make them.
I don't understand why they're unofficial when the statement of poll is the official count of votes in that polling station. And it's really ridiculous that they've been, since 1992, we'll be going through the same formula. It has really been, at both sides, both the PP supporter and APTU supporter, they always think there is suspicion in this delay in the giving up the final votes for the population. Even though the verification is there, as they claim they have to verify, what is there to verify? The statement of poll is the authentic number of votes cast in that polling station. So what is there to verify?
So there's some other interesting stuff coming out of the press conference too. One is that GCOM certainly seem to have done fairly well in terms of training their people to manage the numbers coming to them. And on the other side, there has been some clear cases where persons suddenly found that they were supposed to be voting in different areas. I do know that there are 1 or 2 areas that has reported during the day. I think there was a case where in the quarantine, for example, somebody in Port Brant and turned up to vote, were told that they needed to go to Coriverton to exercise their franchise. They went to Coriverton, and I think in that case somebody else voted. Another person of the same name but different ID voted already. At the end of the day, it was resolved. So there were cases where persons with, and this is where the training comes in, where persons with the same name but different numbers ended up creating a little bit of a hiccup in the system and proved that, yes, to your point, Dr. Rose, a system should be much better. We are joined by Mr. Jonas. If you remember at the top of the program, we had a question with regards to the legitimacy of the list where GCOM is concerned. We are being joined by Mr. Timothy Jonas, who is the chairperson of the ANOG party. So he's going to join us in a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, we're discussing the GCOM press conference. Your comments, colleagues, on that part where persons found they have to vote in a different area totally.
I think, to be honest, that is on the voters themselves. GCOM presented a final voters a long time ago.
3 months.
Don't wait until election day to say, oh, I need to vote in quarantine, or I need to go to vote at Parika or in Canal or whatever the case may be. You should have known that before. So that's not GCOM's issue. That's the individual voters' issue. And the party, the scrutineers, should tell them, listen, I live at Luzignan, okay, but you are registered to vote in Parika. So you need to go vote in Parika. Because the great thing about it is this election and prior election, the PPP and the PNC have a massive ground game. They're second to none. They know every voter, they know where they are, they know when they vote, if they didn't vote, all the things they know. So to tell me that on election day, you go to the polls and say your name is not on the list, that's ridiculous.
But look, that's something common again in all countries. In the United States, in the last presidential election, They had 188,000 people who went and saw their names on the polling place there. But when they went to vote, someone went and voted for them because people got the same names. So that's a duplication.
No, that is resolved because here in the United States, you got to sign the ballot paper.
Right.
So they check your signature with the signature on the ballot paper.
Right.
And then you
But
vote.
but still,
In Guyana,
they had,
do we have to sign the ballot paper there?
no, you don't. You don't have to sign.
No.
But I think
It's a totally secret ballot here.
No. When you pick up the ballot from the presiding officer, do you
You-
have to sign to collect the ballot on a
No.
sheet somewhere?
No.
You don't sign it.
I think if one talks about development in Guyana, you got to do it the right start first with GCOM, get voting machines. That's the first phase of development, voting machines. Well, rigging is something else. You can always double check on that. But voting machines is the way to go forward and cut out all these things. And number two, Canada is the second largest country on earth by land space. And the last election held in Canada last year, where Justin Trudeau had a minority government, but the opposition had more seats, more votes than him, but less seats. Within 4 hours, the election was declared.
Well, not about
Within
Canada.
4 hours.
Doc, talk about tomorrow here in the U.S. We'll have the Super Tuesday.
Yeah, but that will be
And
declared as well.
And by 9 o'clock, you know who win the election.
Right.
You know, so it's
But the thing is, in Canada, they got remote areas like Prince Edward Island. I lived in Canada most of my life. Prince
Charles,
Edward
what
Island,
happened to
Nova
Iowa? You're
Scotia.
comparing apples and mangoes.
And within 4 hours,
developed country and underdeveloped developing.
within 4 hours, the election. But if you want to talk about undeveloped, if you want to talk about undeveloped countries, the same thing goes for Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados. The election declared within 4 or 5 hours after the polls closed.
No, less than that, Doc. In Trinidad, I talked to Trinidadian today.
I know.
They said in Trinidad, poll closed at 6 or 7. By 8 o'clock, you know who win the election.
Right. In Jamaica by 9 o'clock, you know who wins the election.
So gentlemen, we're joined by Mr. Jonas. Tim, welcome to the platform once again. Before I ask you to tell us how the day went for you and your colleagues in your party in New and United Guyana, we would like you to clarify first. We had a question at the top of the program. Some people expressed the view that that GCOM did not legitimize your join the list. And so please clarify that for us. What's the status of the join the list? And then tell us how you feel your party fared during the day. What's your feedback from the various polling places and so forth?
Well, GCOM is a statutory body. It's bound by the legislation. So it's not a question of whether GCOM legitimizes or delegitimizes a list. The thing is provided for in the legislation.
Correct.
And we'll go ahead and
Right.
So that's a non-issue. That is just more noise in the general hue and cry of our elections.
Good.
It was an interesting day. I think we have probably seen the largest voter turnout in my election experience in my years of adulthood. It was quite remarkable. People were quiet, they were vigilant, they were determined, and they went about their business and they voted and they went away, and it was efficiently done and peacefully done for the most part. I understand there were some incidents in Maripo and somewhere over the river, I understand. But for the most part, from what I saw, I was quite impressed at how the actual voting went about. Of course, that's only a small part of the process, and we have to wait and see.
Okay, and how do you think, in terms of your expectation for persons that would have probably given you their verbal support, are you satisfied that those persons got to exercise their franchise, exercise their right comfortably?
Oh yes, I haven't heard any stories of people who've been prevented from voting. The only stories you hear about are people who may vote more than once and extra ID cards being issued out. The thing is that if the only party in opposition that has the wherewithal to really monitor that is the PPP. None of the smaller parties can attend 3,000 polling stations and ensure that everything is cross-checked. But
Right.
if the people have been vigilant, and I haven't heard any stories, anything like that, it would be difficult to do that, so to have double vote. I heard some stories about the ink washing off, but you can see my finger that ink is quite solidly there. I don't think that's going to for another 2 or 3. Two people that I trust did call me to say that they were able to wash their ink off. But you do the best you can. And I don't think now is the time to excite fears or excite suspicions. What's done is done. And we really gotta wait and see now.
Correct. Gentlemen, Mr. Jonas is joining us. Any questions from you?
Yes, I do. Mr. Holland, earlier we were hearing about voter suppression. Do you have a comment? Any incidents of voter
What
suppression?
were you hearing about voter suppression?
Well, we heard, some
incidents on the East Coast.
Some incidents on the East Coast. I think the Monrepo incident was regarded as one of those.
Well, I did hear that there was an incident on Moripo. I'm not sure that it can be labeled voter suppression. In fact, I saw that one well-known PPP figure had said that everyone who needed to vote in Moripo has voted. I wasn't there, I didn't see what happened, but from what I've heard, it doesn't sound as if anyone was prevented from voting. It sounded as if it was the kind of random hooliganism that is almost inevitable in our society.
And
but I don't think that it affected the voting process.
I know what we're getting. We're getting some sort of poll out of the quarantine Berbice area. But one thing I'm offended here in New York, the two of you guys raising your finger and showing you voted, and we can't do that. I mean, it's not the two of you in Guyana. Every time you put your finger up, you're making us feel so bad here that we are not there to vote. But having said
that, you should. Guyana is the place to be. Guyana is the place to be.
Having said
that, it's very easy for you to vote.
Yeah, I know. I know. Overseas voting, we have voted, but
it was quite a small logistical issue for you to vote if you really wanted to.
But we got to bring back overseas voting sometime in the future so we can at least vote where we are. The other thing is this.
If you remember Guyana's history, you would not recommend bringing back overseas voting.
I know. That's the problem. We always have to go back in our history. But the question is, Tim, as we said, we have received some statement of poll out of Berbice. And it seems that it's all PPP and to some extent APNU. We're not getting to Georgetown, any polling station here from Georgetown. What is your feel in terms of your support base in Region 4, in the quarantine, in other regions that you've contested?
One of the curious things with democracy is that it is an absolute enormous gamble. Nothing in Las Vegas can beat it. So we hear things, we talk to people, we get feedback, we get negative responses, positive responses, and you simply don't know. I think that for me personally, what I'll have to say to you is that I see Guyana's political landscape and I see the problem, and I have done my best. So I will sleep well tonight, and whatever the outcome is, at the end of the day, as Socrates said, democracy is not a good system, but the Americans think it's the best system we had. But I've done my best, and we will get what we deserve.
Mr. Jonas, I want to ask you this, putting you on the spot. Have you got any feedback from your representatives as to how the counting, how many votes you all receive in the various districts where you contested?
Well, your question has a lot of your question is based on a lot of supposition. If there are 3,000 to 500 polling stations, which representatives are you talking about? Are you talking about
your representative in that polling station? Did he or she flash back to you anything? Take the statement of poll, a copy of it, cell phone or something, send you the results in your party headquarters?
Again, are you asking if I have 3,000 messengers who've gone out to do that?
No, I'm not asking. I'm saying any one of them. Did you receive any results from your representatives? Any one of them?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. And
the
the results that I've received so far pertain to maybe 10 polling stations. So that represents less than 1% of the number of polling stations out there, and there are no indication whatsoever. But from those 10 polling stations, if you wish me to respond, 1%, 1.5%, going up to 3%, we have to wait and see.
Okay.
Tim, can I just ask you a direct question that I asked the previous young lady who was here? You're a very smart guy, you're very articulate, and you're obviously a lawyer. Simple question. Do you expect to get at least maybe 2 seats?
It's entirely a gamble. I don't have a clue. I think that if you look at what AFP did, and if you assume that AFP's implosion has led to a number of floating voters that don't know what sport to birth in, hopefully, yes. The ambition of a non-united Guyana has been to get a swing vote in Parliament, whether it's by us alone or by us along with the other new parties that have emerged. If that happens, we've succeeded. And that is really what we want to do.
So if ANOG does not do well, just for the sake of argument, do you plan on continuing as a political party to mobilize and fight for constitutional change and so on?
Absolutely, without a doubt. If you have two parties in Guyana, Guyana loses. We have a winner-take-all system, and if those two are allowed to dominate the political landscape, one will win, the other will lose, one will control parliament, and therefore we will have an elected dictatorship as we've had for 50 years. There must be a viable third party. It is not AFP, they have been subsumed, and I believe that it is my patriotic duty to try my best to ensure that there is a third party. Fail or succeed, it has to be done.
Jim, are you
I'd be glad to help if you come to help.
Are you getting any feedback from the outer regions, like Region 7 or Region 8? Any information from those regions?
Well, we didn't contest in Region 8. We did contest in Region 7, although our resources didn't permit us to extensively go in that area. That is where Bartica is. We know that Lennox Schumann and his Liberty and Justice Party are in 7, 8, and 9. And we are really holding out hope that he can take some votes away from the two large parties in those regions.
Question. If you do get some seats, what is your outlook towards alignment in Parliament on issues? You look at the national...
you mean if we share the
national... Go ahead. You didn't hear me? Well, my question is... My question is...
Based on opening.
Okay, my question is, if you do get a few seats and you get into the parliament, what is your role in terms of alignment for or against the government and its issues? Are you going to be more on national issues in terms of whatever the political landscape looks like when it turns out?
Our intention is inclusive governance by constitutional reform. And until we can get the leverage to get that two-thirds majority in Parliament for constitutional reform, we will legislate for inclusive governance by amendment of existing legislation to enable the opposition, whether it's PPP or APNU, doesn't matter, to enable the opposition to have an equal say where the purse strings are. So GEA, which issues petroleum import licenses, Central Housing, which gives away land, the Petroleum Commission, which awards oil blocks, all of those are statutory bodies, and a simple majority in Parliament can mandate that their boards and commissions are peopled equally by PNC and the PPP folk, with a swing vote given to the largest third party. That can be done with a bare majority in Parliament. And that's where the purse strings are. That's where the corruption happens.
Mr.
And
Jonas,
that's what we will do until... Yes, sir.
During the campaign, did you do any polls? And during the election today, did you do any exit polls to know where your party stands? I see you laughing.
Away from Guyana a long time. Exit polls don't work in Exit polls don't work in Guyana. When a man walks out of the polling station in Guyana, and culturally we're like this, we're very secretive. We don't tell you who we voted for or who we're going to vote for. We could be as Indian as Gandhi or as black as Coffee, and we still will not tell you who we voted for. So exit polls don't work in Guyana.
Well, Tim,
during the elections, did you do any polling?
It's difficult to do that. As I said, people are secretive about how they're going to vote. There is no credible poll in Guyana. The only credible poll is when you look at the color of a man's skin, because in Guyana, that's how we vote. There is no other way to do it.
Well, let me ask you this based on what you just said, and since you're on the ground in Guyana, hypothetically speaking, well, it's not so hypothetical, but it can happen. If the PDP wins this election, do you anticipate any problem ahead?
That's the big question, really, isn't it? It's what is worrying all of us. And on both sides, the so-called moderates are advocating for a peaceful result and that kind of thing. I hope that whatever the election result is, it is accepted by the losing side. We just have to wait and see. There is this view on each side that, oh, the other people will do everything necessary to get into power, they want to run the country and that kind of thing. And it's laughable because it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. It is the pot calling the kettle black. Both sides will do anything they can to get into power and to hold on to power. And that has always been our tragedy. So we have to wait and see.
Mr. Jonas, I want to tell you this. I beg to differ on you when it comes to polling. You're looking at a pollster here. And in 2011, I spent 3 months in Guyana doing the polling for the AFC. And I give them the exact numbers with the figures they got at the end of the election results. I told them they're going to win between 10 and 12% of the votes. And they won 11.6%. So if you're telling me this, I don't know, but I'm saying to you, and I know there are people doing polling in Guyana right now, who did polling in Guyana. I communicated with them. So I don't know where you get that idea from that polling, you can't do it in Guyana. I did it in 2011. I can tell you that. 3 months I spent there, did the polling for them.
I did it in 1991.
With that information, rather than asking me the question, you should be giving me the answer.
No, I didn't do poll. I did not do polling this time. If you had hired me, I would have come out there and do your polling for you.
So you pretty much your
I see.
projection then.
I see. Well, I'm afraid that doesn't help us very much for this election.
I'm following up on what Mr. Holland just said. Since you're versed in polls and you have knowledge of what's been happening on the ground,
Dr. Rose,
what's your projection?
I know, but I can't say it. No, there are two polling. There are two polling institutes in Guyana. The Torquay Polling Institute and Matai Polling Institute, and they got the results. They got the results. They showed it. But I'm saying to you, the results might not be accurate because I don't know who did the polling. But I can only speak for me when I did it for the AFC.
Okay, plus or minus an error of what?
4%.
4%?
Nacta is not Torquay. Torquay is done by...
So you say that the poll is accurate to 4%?
No, I did that. I'm telling you what I did. Who were here?
No,
the guys are not here, but I was there in 2011. I did it for the AFC.
You're saying that a poll can be accurate to 4%, if that is a reasonable margin.
But I can tell you this as well. In the same 2011, the AFC brought a pollster from Winnipeg, and they told the AFC they're going to win by 43%. I said no. The AFC can only get between 11 and 12% of the polls, 10 to 12% of the polls, and everybody in the AFC were doubting me. And when the result came out, that was what they got.
What we're seeing here, Tim, is that based on some preliminary report we're getting, it's like about 5% of the population, maybe 5%, might have voted for the small parties. Are you getting that vibe, or is it something that we don't know about yet?
It's really too early to judge. We've gotten a lot of feedback by people who express support, but one voice, 2 voices, even 100 voices is not anything you can measure in the context of 500,000 possible votes.
Right.
So you just have to wait.
So, gentlemen, let's move along. Tim, Mr. Jonas, thank you so much for joining us tonight with the update. We certainly wish you and the journalists well as the results come out tomorrow. But please join us again as more information come your way. as we keep our viewers informed with what's happening across the country and especially with the results of the elections. But thank you so much for being with us here tonight, Tim.
Pleasure as always, Yo.
And give my
All right.
regards to Dr. Jeffrey.
All right. Well, Tim, thank you. Have a good night. Gentlemen, it's been, we are getting some polls. For example, I've seen some stuff coming out of the, let me see, this is the Firish.
Gibraltar, Cortland.
Yeah, and I'm getting that,
that's Apnu Stronghold.
Yes, and I'm seeing some from the Potentia area. So things are coming in slowly but surely. I'm not really, inclined to really pay much heed to the one or two statements that are released. But just to share it for viewers to know what's happening. So, for example, in the Demerara Paradise area, there seem to have been 121. I'm just going to call out some of the numbers here. Anog, 3 votes. APNU AFC 121, LJP 2, PPPC 80, that's 80, and TCI 6, TNM 1. So we're getting some numbers straggling in. We have another one area for the 191, and this is the same Paradise area. I've also gotten from, let me see what area this is. This is in Berbice again. I think everybody would have seen this. This is in the area of Lower Quarantine Secondary School, Rosehall Town.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Anog being 0, APNU AFC 42, Change Guyana 1, PPPC 59. So we're getting some numbers like that. Of course, one knows the strongholds of the various parties. What's your views, gentlemen? I think I know we also have Mr. Salim, who is going to join us in a couple of moments to tell us what's happening with his party and how he sees it. Of course, Salim is with Change Guyana. But in the meanwhile, Salim is coming on. Gentlemen, what are your views? I'm sure you're all receiving feedback from various parts of Guyana too.
I see Cummings Lodge secondary. I got this one from someone. They said APTU got 20, LGP got 4, PP got 179, and that's the vote for that polling station. So each polling station, people as they get it, they're coming in. But it's,
yeah, indeed. And some people are, I mean, to viewers out there, these are unverified numbers, because what we are receiving is photographs of people taking a snapshot of the statement of polls that is posted outside of the polling place. So we cannot, we cannot say that these are verified numbers at all.
So,
yes, go.
I was going to say, I don't know how late you guys are going to be on, but I have some family responsibility I need to take care of. And if I can come on back later, if you guys are still on, I'd love to join you.
Please do, and it's been a privilege to have you on our show. Please do come on again if you can, and do give our regards to the family. We expressed on last week's show, we shared the pain, your pain of going through, the little challenges you had, and you have our support, Doc.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And to the gentlemen in Queens, hopefully I can join you later tonight.
Okay.
all right, Doc.
Take care. Right.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Good night. Salim is online. Salim, how is it going? How has the day been for you?
Hey, Yog, how are things? Day has been pretty busy. Started off with visiting some of the polling stations with our candidates.
Yeah,
then of course, visiting some other outlining polling stations. Just to get a feel and vibe of today. And I say most of it has been very, very positive in the sense that people wanted to vote. People want to express, where their interest is as it relates to a party. and we're glad that people are more than willing to be part of the process. As you are aware, there has been some hiccups here and there. We've had quite a few complaints on the process, as well as on some person not being able to vote. But by and large, I think those are in small numbers, but it certainly indicates that there's need for GCOM to do even better, especially when we all believe that GCOM is on a scramble to get this election in on time and as free and fair as possible.
Okay. Tell me something. I mean, you would have heard, as you rightly said, we got some feedback of things happening in East Coast. There's some feedback of some stuff in Essequibo, West Dem, and so forth. Do you think that the persons that you felt would have voted for your party, do you think in any way they were negatively affected by any of these incidents?
Absolutely not. I think, and I will get to that, but I want to just make an observation. Your panel, bro, it's all men of an older age and no youth. I think it'll be wise next time when you do these panels to include women and include young people on your panel, because even though their aspirations may not be fully expressed at the polls, their aspirations should at least be heard and be mentioned. But to come back to your question, absolutely, we campaign heavily in urban areas, and much of the polls that you've been reading is in outlining areas: strong APNU, strong PPP, primarily voters who vote along ethnic lines, strong ethnic lines. And we understand, and we don't expect that kind of behavior to change in a one go around of Change Guyana. So we believe the educated, the younger folks, the women who are feeling the economic pangs of Guyana, they're the ones who we have not heard from yet. And hopefully in the course of tonight and the rest of it tomorrow, when these polls are released in places like especially Georgetown, places like Riverton, places like New Amsterdam, and so on, and of course Region 2, which we think we have a great chance of performing well. So those areas. I'm eager to see how we've performed, but I know, given what we've put into it, it is certainly the kind of we will get the kind of I think the feedback that we should get. But bear in mind, this is my third or fourth campaign in Guyana, and I've been battling the scourge of ethnic voting in just about every one of my campaigns. And it is sad that we are sitting here after 54 years, and we're sitting here after so many years of PPP and APNU, and we have been unable to crack. This is not an issue of third party. Let's get that straight. It's not an issue of third party, small party, emerging party, new parties. This is an issue of our population, African Guyanese and Indian Guyanese, who have been uneducated for the past 54 years to not vote on issue. Do not vote on issue. Do not vote for better jobs. Do not vote for better taxes. Vote because the other side will rape you, or the other side will remove the food in front of you. So it is sad that we're still, to a large extent, in the strong APNU PPP areas, have been unable to break that uneducation cycle that has been around for quite a while. I mean, the PPP sadly campaigned heavily on reopening estates. What does opening real estate, opening the estates mean? It means going back to the fields and becoming poor again.
Right, but Salim,
APNU would have. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So your point is taken. I think one of our presenters earlier, somebody from another party, when they joined us, we would have asked these questions. I think Charles might have raised this point. If after 54 years people exercise their right to vote in a particular manner, then that is, of course, their right. Because I think if you look at even the United States, For how much hundreds, 200 years, you guys would have had two parties, or less or whatever, and it remains what it is. People gravitate, they grow within a system, and they work or not within a system. Um, but your point is taken. I'm going to ask Brian, because Brian, Brian would.
But if I can say, I mean, I know there's two big parties in America, but those parties debate heavily on core issues. Unfortunately, our small country with two large ethnic parties speaks very, very little on issues, and even within those parties, there's no discussion of issues. So I think it's a orange and pear kind of comparison.
Okay.
With I mean, America's developed with two parties. We've underdeveloped with two parties. So I don't know, I don't get the connection with two party. I'd be glad if PPP and PNC would have been two very positive force that's taking on each other to develop Guyana. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It's been a cycle of underdevelopment and poverty after 54 years.
Salim, quickly, is Dr.
Hey, Dr.
Rose
Rose,
here?
how are you doing?
Pretty good. You spoke about the United States. Well, let me say this to you. They vote on ideology. They don't care what either party say about policies. Because if they do care, they would not have voted for Trump. So they just vote on party platform.
I agree, but their ideology defines their position on taxes. It defines their position on health. It defines their position on women's rights and LGBT community. It defines their position on those things. Unfortunately, where do we find an ideological position of the PPP or APNU presenting itself on the real issue, the bread
They
and butter
don't have
issue
to.
of Guyana?
The parties in Ghana don't have to do that.
It doesn't.
They don't have to do that. It's a different framework.
Yeah, the other thing that I think we need to throw into the discussion, because I've gone around to a couple of places of polls today, and one of the things that has obviously interest people is who they felt will manage the oil money to their betterment better.
What did your poll say?
Well, this is what they're saying. They don't feel that any of the newer parties had the experience or the wherewithal to get there quickly, because all they see the newer parties have campaigned on is to bring the two down, not necessarily on an economic platform. Hold on. So this is what people are saying, not me. And so people, in expressing their views of going or selecting to go with one of the larger parties over a new party, might think, okay, at this crucial time in Guyana, when we have to manage huge reserves of money from oil, maybe it's better to go with an experience, albeit not a good experience.
And again, that's part of the uneducation of the voting population. They automatically recline back to their ethnic parties as the party that can represent them well. Their party has not represented them well. We're talking specifically about oil. Has the African Party represented the Africans well in the current oil contract?
Absolutely. Brian, you want to answer that one?
Would the PPP do any better? Absolutely not. They haven't even spoken out against the contract. So I mean, the only person that has international experience in dealing with companies like Exxon is Robert Badal. Robert Badal, and large, has been able to articulate a much stronger position for the Guyanese population as it relates to specifically on the issue of oil.
But then I mean, should you then blame the electorate if a small, and not just your party, if a new party doesn't succeed? But I think Brian wants to make a point to you, or one of our other colleagues wants to make a point.
Sure. We're going around in circles with this thing with the oil contract. The problem with the oil contract, it has to be nationalistic. Whenever it is one side, the other side will just point and say it is not right, they can get a better deal like Mr. Trump. As long as it's not nationalistic, we will be in this cycle all the time. If it's nationalistic, everybody gets a buy-in, it's public, transparent, we know what it is.
And Brian, I think you've been echoing
exactly that's what it is.
All right, so no one side is going to give you any better deal until it's nationalistic. Now, coming back to the issue of sugar, There were strikes recently, about more wages in a failing industry. The sugar is dying, and people still, it's just being used as a weapon, as a political weapon to get at the other side. You have transfer of 30 billion for 2 years. That is like 200 million US wasted on a corrupt, top-heavy, subsidized a top-heavy industry. The country would have been better served if you had a hydro with that money. So I don't know why people keep harping on sugar. If you look around Guyana, we have a lot of Cubans. They have large failing state enterprises. We have a lot of Venezuelans, large failing state enterprises. Even Trinidadians, they had a big refinery.
I mean, it's not only sugar, and I totally agree with you, Brian, that sugar should have been restructured 25 years ago. We should have been, the whole entire industry, the population that's in the sugar belt should have been fully involved in other industries. And I'll give you an example. The PPP destroyed the industry, APNU, kind of buried it, So
we got to move away.
After 25 years of Indians primarily in the sugar industry voting for the PPP, when the sugar industry closed, they had nowhere to go. Not one single pine factory, not one single, other industry in whatever region, whether it's Potential Wales, whether it's in Kanji, whether it was in Skeldon. Everybody went back to working as a laborer in the market. Everybody went back to working with Gafoor as a laborer from the sugar industry. So I totally agree that the sugar industry has been draining the economy, but it is not only the sugar industry, it is the government itself, a huge bureaucracy that they've built, and other state corporations. So by and large, what Guyana is missing is an economic agenda. What we have is a political agenda meant to suppress and keep all of us poor, uneducated, so that we vote as we are today.
But Salim, I find the use of your term there, I would not want to agree. The people of Guyana, they're not politically uneducated. They have a right to a choice.
That's right.
And I don't think that if they exercise their right in one way or the other, that it makes them uneducated. It's a matter of who they have confidence in doing what they want. Yes, it's about race, and yes, it's about all of that. But yeah, it just goes against my grain personally.
No, people have a right to choose, but if you keep people poor, you keep them hungry, you keep them tired, and you tell them what the other side will do to you, their choices are very, very limited. You got to understand that.
But that's something happening all over the world, isn't it? Every country.
We've got to go beyond saying that the people voted for that. We got to go beyond that. We got to go to the point where, is this benefiting Guyana? Okay, we all choose a democratic government for the past 54 years. Has it benefited us? So I'm saying there's something fundamentally wrong in how we apply and how we transact our votes.
Salim, this is Charles. How you doing? I think we are dissecting this election and prior election without looking at the overall picture. Is which comes first, the chicken or the egg? The thing is this. The Constitution says that the party with the most vote win the presidency, period. The PPP and the PNC will not change that. They benefit from each other. You go to the Indian community and you will hear the Indian community say, you want them black people to rule the country. You go to the African community, you hear, you want them Koli people rule the country. And that is the problem. Unless the Guyanese people, and this election is showing us that their vote totally race. Very small percentage went into the third parties. So the Guyanese Indian, what surprised me, Salim, is the mixed race. They also went with the PP or the PNC. And that really bothers me. I thought the mixed race would have come out and say, you know what, let's not vote for the two racial party. Let us vote for something independent. It appears as though that did not happen.
Culture of political personalities, Charles. Political personalities. That's the dominant factor.
Salim, you want me to say this to you? Look, any party in Guyana that comes up and talks about change, we're going to make change to X, Y, and Z, I can tell you flat out they're wasting their time. Your leader Badal had came out and talked about bread and butter issues affecting the poor guy in the streets, that would have been a different ball game. Bread and butter issues. You talk about change, it's above the small man's head.
Dr. Rose, we were the only party speaking bread and butter issue. Absolutely no one else. Certainly not APNU.
Well, I didn't hear it from your party. The thing is,
PPP were just,
the thing is,
mimicking.
This was asked in Trinidad in the last election. If you give everybody in Trinidad $5,000 US dollars, but the people said that will bankrupt the country. You know what the people say? Give me the 5,000. They don't care about the bankrupt the country. Constitution is above the head of the average man in Guyana.
Absolutely, totally, yeah.
Oil at this stage is above the average man in Guyana. Bread and butter issues. How am I going to feed my kids? That's where Badal or your party should have put their emphasis on 100%, and would have better results.
The Westminster two-party system does not work in multi-ethnic, multiracial society.
Again, people in Guyana sadly have been conditioned not to vote along bread and butter issues. If we were voting bread and butter issues, both APNU and PPP would have been, not in the position they're in right now.
So who would have won, Charles? Who won? Salim, sorry. Who would have won, Salim?
Who would have won? Certainly Change Guyana. We've had the strongest message on the ground as it relates to taxes and healthcare and the oil contract and even putting more money in people's pocket. We talked about reducing fuel. Everybody uses fuel in Guyana, whether you're driving a tractor or you're a speedboat to Bartica or you're driving a taxi. Yet they're unwilling to vote for less taxes on fuel, and they prefer to vote for the ethnic, mini gods. We talked about fuel, other areas that puts more money in people's pockets.
Right.
Yet they're not. But and again, I'm not blaming people. What I'm saying, we probably triggered a process of uneducating voters. We understand it may be a shock in this time round, but certainly in the long term, sustained activity to minimize ethnic voting has to be maintained.
So Salim, look, the elections are over. So we have to, look at what we do tomorrow. So here's we have another guest lineup. So here's my final question. Here's my final question for you. So in terms of what's your expectation? What's your realistic expectation as to the performance of your party tomorrow, or is it too early to call?
No, before you answer that, Salim, what Yoke said here, by now it's 10 o'clock in Guyana. Did you get any response from your polling agents across Guyana in terms of what Joe just asked? How did you do well in areas like in Region 2 or in Region 3? By now, I'm sure you have in your database those polls.
We've been getting results, as you would imagine, like everyone else from the field. In specific areas that we've contested vigorously, those areas that I've not gotten any kind of responses yet, but the outlining areas I've been getting. So yes, it's a bit early. I think we will come out fairly well in Region 2 as well as in the urban areas that has not been reported yet. I'm still waiting to see what those results are, but certainly I believe that at the end of the day, Change Guyana has given voters a clear opportunity, a clear option to vote away from traditional lines, so that we can have a breather and we can look at a new beginning for our economy. That we might, with our few seats that we're going to have after this election, we're certainly going to take the battle into Parliament as it relates to the key areas that will benefit Guyanese and put more money in their pocket.
Okay. Well, Salim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Yoke. Thank you, Dr. Rose.
Certainly best wishes for tomorrow, and we can probably pick up the conversation again.
Got you, man. All right, good night. Hey, get a woman and a young man on the panel next time. All right. Good.
Thanks. So, viewers out there, we are being joined by one of the persons from the private sector, I believe, Mr. Boyer. We're going to be joined in a couple of moments. We are still awaiting. We were hoping to get to be joined by Mr. Nandalal and Mr. Ramjatan and so forth. One would appreciate that they're all probably very, very tired. But let's see. I know that so there are some allegations going around social media of people being caught in places of poll with arms and ammunition and so forth. But please let us be vigilant in terms of where we are getting our news from. To the viewers out there, just as a reminder, voting has taken place across the country as GCOM released. The polls are closed. Counting has also been completed, but the statement of polls are coming in. GCOM will await until they receive all of the original statement of polls before making a declaration, but they have promised to release numbers as they get them. To let viewers know too, we have had some issues around the country. We shared that earlier in the program. We're not going to repeat that here. And we have had input from a number of persons who have come on the show. We have Mr. Boyer joining us tonight. Mr. Boyer, good night.
Hi, good night. How is everyone doing?
Very well. What's your feel of what's happened today, and how you think the polls, the happenings went?
Well, I think the overall, I would say things went decently smoothly, but there's a lot of room for improvement. What we noticed a lot was that because you had a reduction in the number of polling stations and a few changes to division lines, and we have a population that doesn't have easy access to the internet, as well as you didn't have continuous cycles of registration, so you didn't have GCOM offices across the place to answer questions. So we noticed a number of voters who were frustrated as they had to go from polling station to polling station to find out where they had to vote. And this was not unique to a particular or singular area. This would have been, very widespread. But I don't think it caused any sort of major overall impact to the outcome of the election. So it caused frustration, but I don't think it caused disenfranchisement.
Right.
Other than that,
did speak to a
most of what happened is par for the course for Guyanese election.
Yeah, we did speak to a number of persons from various parties and get feedback from persons from their private perspective too. Yeah, I mean, people have concerns, but I think the day went smoothly. This is feedback we are getting from some of the international observers too. The tiny little hiccups were too tiny to really matter to the overall outcome. I think the country and the world is not just awaiting the declaration tomorrow, but will wait to see what happens thereafter.
Of course. Well, the first thing is that, I mean, the declaration will not be probably for a little bit longer. GCOM, of course, had their live press conference and have kind of outlined the timelines they expect to be producing results by, because some of these statement polls and ballot boxes are coming from areas that are only accessible by boat or plane. And so, it will take a while to get those statements in. Of course, everything that's accessible by road will be in early, and you'll have results from those areas by tomorrow. I'd say by tomorrow midday.
Okay. Gentlemen, any question for Mr. Boyer? Thanks for the update from your side, gentlemen.
Nick, I know your private sector commission is the most independent, I would presume, in this election, and or the guests we had so far tonight. How many observers did you have spread out across Guyana, and how did they do? Did you get a copy of a statement of poll from them?
Yeah. So just to clarify, so I'm representing the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, and we worked with the Private Sector Commission, and so we fielded 40 observers. We fielded about 30 observers. They fielded about 116. Together, we were about 146 observers in total. And, we have people who are monitoring the counts at the polling stations they were assigned to, and we're getting the information from those statements of poll live as they come in. A few of them had some minor snafus, and the counts on those started late. So we're still waiting some of those statement of polls. But of course, sampling wise, you're talking about overall in the country, it's about 2,230 some stations that you're waiting statement of polls from. So it's going to be a number more above our 140 to get a good picture of the results or a feel for what's going on.
Right, but certainly to Charles's question, certainly by now, the PPP, the APNO, they know where they stand in this election.
I would say not exactly at this moment. They're going to start getting a lot of information trickling in. Well, I wouldn't use the word trickling. It's probably flooding in right now as a lot of people complete
it's a matter of
around the same
collating the
time.
results for them now.
Yeah. So for them, they'll have a very good picture. I would say by 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Of tomorrow morning, they'll have an excellent picture of where they stand in overall results. But of course, GCOM is the only official body to declare.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, thanks so much for that update. We hope to continue our coverage of assessment of the polls and declaration and so forth tomorrow. So thanks for coming in tonight. Tomorrow night, to the viewers out there, we are hoping to have another similar panel. Maybe some of our good members here will return. I don't know. We'll see. But we're hoping to also be interfacing with some of the bigger parties tomorrow night. In terms, by then we'll know what's happened and how things have transpired. But certainly we are hoping to have a state of play tomorrow night in our program, by which time everybody will know what's happening. I must remind viewers out there that, yes, it's getting late. It's beyond 10 p.m. at night here in Guyana. I must remind you that things have gone well during the day. I must remind you also that, all across the country, people have exercised their votes. We have not had incidents where people were prohibited from voting. So by and large, people have exercised their right to vote, and it's now left to us to have a declaration of those numbers and for us to see how we take this country forward. I must say this and invite comment from our viewers, from our panelists here. I've said it over and over on our program that the politicians do not run this country. It is the people of this country that must learn that it is we, the people, that runs this country. The politicians are paid by us, and if they don't do what we want them to do, we have the right to voice our voices, to bring out our voices in any public way against whatever is on. So what's your take on this, panelists? Charles, you go first.
I know I don't quite subscribe to what you just said there. The thing is this. No, what you said makes sense, except polls close at 6 o'clock today. That's the end of the voters' right to determine what the new government does. And that's the problem in Guyana. You cannot go and say, hey, I vote for you because you said you will do 1, 2, 3. You didn't do it. They're going to say, who the hell are you? Get out of the door, call security on me. And that's the problem. When polls close today, that's the end of democracy in Guyana. Whoever's elected government, they will do whatever they want, how they want, when they want to do it, and the rest of us can get the hell out of here. And that's the problem with Guyana.
But Charles, only we allow them to. Look, in the past, what's happening, or what is...
Because we vote race. No, because we vote ethnic or ethnic cleavage.
But I don't disagree with you. But here is my position. Here is my position. So in the past, we did that. But in the past, after election, like in 2015, like 2011, we voted and then we said, you know what? Give them 2 years to get their act right. And they never get their act right and we sit by. But what I'm saying is now we don't sit by. Because you do not only exercise your citizens' right at the ballot, you exercise it every day. Because if we as citizens accept mediocre performance from government, then we're telling them continue. So I agree, but I beg to disagree with you.
Put it a test case. if APNU win this election and APNU is declared the President Granger continue, ask anyone to go and protest against the government if something is wrong. Guess who will go there? PP supporters. If PP, okay, if PP win the election and the government is doing something wrong, you want to protest against the government, who you think the protest is going to be?
I
APNU
will.
supporters. Yeah, very minor mix crossover. And that's our problem. We do not have a unified, look right here, I mean, around the world. Guyanese is the second largest population of foreigners in Queens. And we can't work together as Guyanese. We don't have a member of parliament, we don't have a member in Congress, we don't have no one in the assembly, we don't have no legislation. This girl, Roxanne Passad from Brooklyn, she's in Brooklyn. In Queens, we don't have none. That's how divided we are, even over here in Queens. We have come to the same division we have in Guyana. Will it end?
Good, but Charles,
we are supposed to be the educated ones, I'm told. But we are less educated, I think.
But Charles, you see, this is why I have challenged all the new parties. If you do not get through, is it the end of the day for you? This is where the education for the next election starts tomorrow. And this is my point, that the work for the next election, campaigning starts tomorrow, not a day or a week or a month before elections. So I take your point, but let's agree to disagree.
No, but I agree.
Gentlemen,
with you.
what?
I agree with you.
Yes, Brian.
I agree with you.
Okay, wonderful. So gentlemen, it's been a long night, and I'm hoping that we can have a follow-up to tonight's discussion tomorrow. We're gonna bring on some more guests tomorrow, persons. We're hoping to get some feedback from Essequibo and other places. This is people who voted, people who actually experienced the cycle there in Berbice, in Essequibo, in Lethem, and so forth. We're gonna get some of those tomorrow. But it's been wonderful to remind everybody out there, while I think the website is not active as yet, it's coming up as talking to you here. It is coming up as speaking. I can see things floating up on screen as I am talking to you viewers here. GuyanaElections.com is where GCOM has promised to place all the results as they get it. So please let us, to viewers all across Guyana, please let us keep our calm, keep our cool, and let us await the results. And I would like to say, whoever is declared the winner, let due process take place. And let's have respect for Guyana and keep things going healthy. Gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Dr. Rose and all of you, I would like to really invite you, if you can spend some time with us tomorrow, please join us again. Let me also say that to our viewers out there, that it's been an interesting discussion with some of the newer parties tonight. We're certainly looking towards building a Guyana tomorrow. GlobeSpan, thanks to GlobeSpan, to Devin Bissoon, and especially to Nohar Singh for making this program free, available to all of us. And to bring live updates during the day. Let me also thank the international community for sending a slew of international observers across this country. Enough cannot be said in terms of expressing gratitude to the international community. Charles, you were going to say?
Yeah, I want to thank Nohar Singh and Devin for providing some great food for us here in the studio, for us and for the audience. And I see Russell is smiling there too, so we want to thank GlobeSpan for being a good host for us tonight.
Dr. Mohadib, what time tomorrow?
It should be around the same time as today. Most likely it would be towards 7:30. But we will keep you posted, and we'll send flyers around to all the viewers. Please keep tabs on this page so that you can get feedback, and like our GlobeSpan Facebook page, please. Charles?
Guyana time 7 or New York time?
Yes. I am in Guyana. You see, I voted. I'm talking about Guyana.
So it's 6 o'clock. Okay, thanks a lot. And it's nice nice talking with you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you all. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay.
Have a great night. Sleep well, and talk to you all tomorrow. Good night, Guyana. Good night, family.
the crabwood that grow in Essequibo is we own. And the 6 o'clock bee and the Saki Winky is we own. And the lava that run from Govaya Gun is we own. And them Wallaba posts and the Coratin post is we own. Wondery crab is we own. Truly Benab is we own. Umanaya is we own. Frikorila is we own. Arapaima is we own. Umanayana is we own. Whether Grover, whether Pleasance, we know Pagua and Confidence, and we know how to wine and prance. Why oh?